All right. Pretty sure we're live. Right? Yeah? Let me pop up chat. You guys hear me okay? What's going on? All right. Sorry for the wait. Here's what happened. I had to eat food. It's basically the end of the story. So normally what happens is right before these Monday streams, right? Raid fail next chapter. No, I don't think it's happening next chapter. Hey, what's going on? Audio's good. Good volume. Never seen that before. What's funny is I'm not even using the mic. So the mic is not plugged in at the moment. So this is just normal computer audio. I'll keep that in mind. Bard here says, Morge, now that the Knicks are good, how can you stream at the same time as their game, though? The Knicks are not good. I mean, they're probably better than they normally are, right? Like, you know, how they historically are, but the Knicks aren't good. We're not there yet. Strife says, Morge bought new clothes? No, it's just cold today, so I'm wearing a hoodie. This hoodie features probably last winter as well. So, what was I saying? Yeah, we'll talk about the writing in a second. What was I saying? Sounds bad? No, it's okay. You guys will deal with it. Raid will fail in 4 chapters, says the privacy policy. Screenshot this. I don't know about that. I mean, the raid's going to fail, but I think that it's going to take longer, at least, than 4 chapters. So, well, we can talk about that too in a second. What did I want to start with? Oh, yeah, I guess I'll start with a heads up. I will have to go to the bathroom to pee, for sure. Probably multiple times this stream. Reason being, I was trying to eat a lot of food really fast to get to this stream, right? And you guys, I could see you in the chat being like, Lorge, late, etc. So I'm trying to eat food, and at the same time, I'm like, it's like sweet green. Have you guys eaten sweet green? So the food's not that good. It's just healthy. So I'm forcing it down with water. So I drink like 3 glasses of water as I'm trying to force down this food at the same time. And so I guess I've drank a lot of water in the last 15 minutes, basically. Let me see. Adrian Hakeem, what's up? Can we talk about how BS the Kinemon torso thing is? All right. Amin Dariri says, put this on the second channel when you're done. Yep, we'll do. Sorry about the, what do you call? Sorry about the delay on last time. That's not my fault. That's my editor's fault. I can blame it on him. Usually he's really good at everything, except for that. I'm not baked right now. I'm completely normal. Completely sober. I did 1 stream high, and that was with O'Hara. That was a Wano report. Some of you might remember that. I did 1 Wano report high. I couldn't do it. It was too difficult. I told O'Hara partway through it, I was like, dude, I can't. I can't do it. I have to stop. I can't, it's too much going on. You know, too much going on. I can talk about that in a bit. Let's talk about the Kinemon torso thing first. So, here's my thoughts on it. Kinemon, okay, because you can break it down. Everybody has different complaints is the thing, right? People have different complaints. So for some people, the complaint is those 3 characters should be dead, right? Other people, the complaints are it's fine that they're alive, but then Oda shouldn't make it out to seem like they're dead, right? And then other complaints are the logistics of it, so why is Kinemon specifically able to do this? I don't have a problem with Kinemon being alive, personally, because, so at least the way I read that, when I read these death chapters that Oda does, I kind of put them into 2 categories. Categories where it feels like Oda is trying to get, categories where it feels like a death scene has been written, and I think a death scene for a character, in my opinion, usually entails some sort of how do I say, extreme focus on the character, sort of look back or look through at everything that this character was, some sort of final send-off monologue or speech or internal thought process, right? Just something a little deeper and more poignant for that character that kind of basically crosses them off, writes them out of the story, and you can tell that this is their final moment. Okay? At least that's how I feel for when Oda kills off main characters. Guys like Virgo and Monet, who we assume are dead, I wouldn't expect that, right? So, I didn't feel like Kinemon fell in that category. When Kinemon's death scene happened, right? When Kinemon's death scene happened, I was surprised that a lot of people read that as a death scene, because to me that just seemed like, Oda having Kaido seemingly brutally beat down Kinemon and stab him and such, but definitely not kill Kinemon. Like that was too short for a character of Kinemon's magnitude. Because Kinemon is one of the most prominent side characters in the series. He's been around a very, very long time. You would always expect Oda to devote a full chapter, right? Or at least half a chapter to a character like Kinemon. Okay? Because like even Pell, in Pell's fake death scene, that was a very long chapter. Or not, it wasn't a full chapter necessarily, but it was quite a bit of story that Oda devoted to it. So, I mean, and obviously Ace and Whitebeard, and even Pound. That's one of the reasons that I was so certain that Pound had died, because Oda devoted a full chapter to that scene. So when Oda wants to actually write a character's death, that's why it's different to me than like Kinemon. I never thought he had died. It was more so just like Oda kind of giving him the brutal beatdown. I thought that Kiku had definitely died, because everything about Kiku's scene, that's the one that bothers me more. Everything about Kiku's scene, I didn't even think it was a particularly good scene, right? But you could tell that Oda was kind of wrapping up a lot of, I don't know, like he was trying to do a very poetic send-off towards Kiku's character. She got a full fucking monologue about some falling snow, which now in retrospect is so weird and cringe, because it wasn't even like a good monologue. Like Kiku wasn't a prominent enough character to even if that was her death scene, there just wasn't enough that had happened with her for it to like warrant her getting like some sort of Shakespearean monologue on her way out. Okay? So to now find out that she didn't even die during that weird Shakespearean monologue makes it so much worse. Kinemon, I didn't think he died. So I do think Kinemon is going to die. I just think that that's being saved for a more impactful moment where Oda can devote a full chapter to it, or at least half a chapter, right? And then Kanjuro I thought was bad, because, in my opinion, because Kanjuro I also thought was dead because of the way that Kanjuro framed everything. Like, yeah, this is the curtains for me. You were the one who finished me off. All makes sense. This is the end of my story. And Kanjuro had already had one of those fake out deaths. So I didn't, like, Kiku I thought was dead. Kanjuro I thought might be alive, but I would rather he not be alive. And then Kinemon, I was like, yeah, he's alive, and I don't think it's a big deal if he's alive, because Oda didn't put that much effort into making him seem dead. By comparison to an Ace or a Whitebeard or whatever, like Oda didn't, or even a Kiku, Oda didn't try that hard to make it seem like Kinemon died, right? It was more so the moment for Kinemon trying to sacrifice himself for Momonosuke. I'm sure Kinemon will get a bigger sacrifice moment down the line, because Kinemon has repeatedly said that he's ready to die here, okay? So, all in all, I think across those 3Ks, I hope that answered a lot of questions and my opinions on each. Now, if you want to talk about the logistics of the torso thing being the reason, I thought that was dumb. But, like, it was one of those things where, like, I just didn't think that Oda needed to give an explanation. Because Oda has characters take these sort of mortal wounds, and then just be walking around fine later. So I thought it would actually be better if Oda just left it at, like, Kinemon got, like, hit in the head and then stabbed by Kaido, but then Kinemon is able to kind of walk it off later, because that's just more in line with what I expect from One Piece, It's just like, yeah, unless I actually see their head get chopped off, or see them, like, see a dead body and we know it's a dead body, I'm not going to believe it. So I didn't think Oda needed to do the decapitated, or not decapitated, but the separated torso and lower body. Like, I didn't think he needed to stretch all the way back, that far back to Punk Hazard to be like, this is how Kinemon survived. I would have just been fine with it if Kinemon was okay, because, oh no! Alright, spilled some water over my laptop. I hope that everything I know and love doesn't just disappear right now. I'll be right back. I need more paper towels. Think it might be fine? All right. Did the stream not crash during that? Is that not a miracle? Are you guys still here? Did the stream somehow not crash even though I spilled water everywhere? Even though it normally crashes all the time? I guess that's just the power of like Ethernet. All right, good news is I know you guys don't care, but let me fill you in. Good news is that my computer seems to be working fine. All right, so you don't have to worry about that. I know that was really weighing on you guys really heavily. Oh God, I hope Morge doesn't lose his laptop with, all of his notes and photos and all of the stuff that he cares about. I know that was I know that your guys' hearts were just like pounding in your chest, just worried. Oh God, I hope Morge didn't lose all the stuff that's on his computer. All right, so where were we at? Anyway, so the Kinemon thing. I didn't think Oda needed to do the stuff that he did. I think trying to explain it with the law stuff made it worse in people's minds. All right, where were we at? Yeah, but that's basically it. I'm sure this question will come up more frequently, so we'll revisit it. All right. Sheesh, really original name. Says, if you do the mod tier list this stream, it's not a mod tier list stream. It's a chapter 1030 discussion stream. Tier list streams are only after, tier list streams are only during break weeks. So when there's no chapter the previous week, then I do a tier list stream on Monday. I think that's kind of the trend that I'm trying to head towards. Sheesh says he'll become a patron if I do this mod tier list. C tier and below get unmodded and S tier become chief mods. Sheesh. This wild fantasy of yours is just not going to play out. Pierce Sullivan says, Morge, do you ship Robin and Jinbei because you view Jinbei as a self-insert? One, I do not ship Robin and Jinbei. Robin and Frankie is the only Robin ship that makes sense. I think actually there's a weird argument I've seen people say for Robin and Law. They're just the same personality type, and they have certain moments together where they're kind of on the same wavelength, in a way that Robin really isn't with any of the other characters, because they basically just think the same. They're fairly similar. But I don't think that... I don't view Robin and Jinbei as a ship whatsoever. Listen, Jinbei is a fish. We don't want any humans breeding with fish. Not in this series. That's weird. That's bestiality. Remember that. Doesn't matter what they call Jinbei or how they try and welcome him as one of their own. In my eyes, he'll always just be a fish. All right, Benjamin Lewis says, Randy Troy chat theory. What does that mean? Is that Randy Troy's theory or a theory from Randy Troy's chat? I don't even know what this means. People on Wano can't die. Possibly because of the... Wait, no, this isn't a theory. The theory is that people in Wano can't die because there's been no death so far, so it's gotten to the point where there's actual theories trying to explain this shit. That like Wano's just a land of immortality or something like that. How about people in One Piece can't die? How about that? If I'm to get serious and evaluate this theory, I'd say no, because as far as I know, Odin is dead and Yasue died. Didn't Yasue die like 20 chapters ago? I mean, if Yasue can't die, I don't know what everyone was so sad about, you know, all of these people in Wano. I'm sure someone has caught on to the fact that they can't die, so... People don't like my Jinbei take. All right, Keenan says, genuinely shocked how many people thought Kinemon and company were actually dead, because I never bought it. I mean, it's a mixed bag. I thought Kiku's death, there's a line, right? Like, Kiku's death scene was written like a death scene, right? Kinemon, like, there's death scenes, and then there's One Piece death scenes, and Kiku's death was written like a One Piece death scene, as far as I could tell. Sorry, as far as I could tell. Kinemon's was not. Kinemon, the size of the character's role in the narrative, you would just expect something more, and it was left a little more ambiguous. So Kinemon's, I didn't feel like it was a death scene, but like Kiku's really, really felt like a death scene. I don't really know what else to say. It just did. I mean, yeah, Ashura Doji, for example, great example of a character I don't think anybody expects is dead, or I think most people expect is still alive, right? Because we got nothing really out of it. It was off screen. No real, like, character moment or reflection or anything like that surrounding it. Bozo D. Luffy Weebified says, thoughts on Law's Awakening, how it works. Also, Big Mom's still beating those two for sure in my eyes. I mean, you know how I feel. I feel like that nobody really wins here at the end of the day. Law's Awakening, I think Law's ability is so broken as is that him getting Awakening, it doesn't really... No, I mean, it does change a lot, but it's just like... His ability was so broke as is that I feel like... How do I explain this? With Law, yeah, it's amazing that right now he can... If he injects the opponent, right, with his sword, then it seems like he can start affecting their insides, right? By the way, I have a video tomorrow coming out on Awakenings, right? So I'll go over this more in depth, I suppose, there. But let's say Law specifically. So he can start affecting people's insides, right? The thing about Law, though, is that his ability is just so good in general, aside from Awakening, that to me it's kind of like Law doesn't even use the abilities he has right now to their fullest whatsoever, right? He doesn't use the abilities that he has right now to their fullest at all, right? There's like a million more things that he could be doing. You see people like every chapter just throwing out like, not every chapter, but very frequently people throwing out things like, you know, why doesn't Law just do this and get them? Why doesn't Law just teleport this thing over to that thing or something? Like there's so many things that Law in theory could do that to me it's like, yeah, it's really cool that he got like another hacks ability, but like, it's not even, how much does it, like I'm sure Oda's going to portray this as kind of bumping him up in the in-story canon, I suppose, of how dangerous of a fighter he is. But like his abilities were already so good that like I just feel like this doesn't really. It's just like the rich get richer, and the richer were already not using everything that they had to their fullest in the first place. So you know, it's cool that he got this ability, but like to me, it's just like it's not like crazy, you know, because his abilities as is are already crazy. So that's kind of it. Young Doka says, Morge, you are missing the point here, okay? Oda is introducing his lower half because that's how we met him, and in Wano it's coming back. The death Act 3 is him. Yeah, no, I believe that Kinemon will die. I've said before I believe Kinemon will die. I just don't think that that was his death scene. So you're saying, okay, we're getting his lower half again, but the lower half is gonna, so just like kind of a callback, I suppose, to where this all started. And then Kinemon, I assume we'll get to see him reattached by the end of this act, and then he dies. I personally still am holding out hope that like multiple scabbards die, but it's sort of in a together sacrifice, right? So it doesn't have to be just Kinemon, but a few scabbards. In my mind, I would love to see, if the raid fails, I would love to see the scabbards, at least some of them, essentially be part of the reason that some of the allies are able to get away. If they're able to essentially put up one final wall as a sort of last stand sacrifice and basically put their bodies on the line so that certain allies can get away, I think that would be really good. That's obviously if the raid fails. Even if it doesn't fail, I still think Kinemon is supposed to die some point this arc, because he should just die, right? Like, he's been saying who comes into the battle saying that they're ready to die multiple times. It's Kinemon, right? So I feel like he should die. Angel says the hard drive will live, don't worry. Thanks, Angel. I don't really know how the hard drive works, but that was what I was going to ask you guys. If the computer stopped or started you know how it works in movies, right? So some water gets spilled on a laptop and then things start sparking, right? And then you're supposed to see some sparks, and then the computer goes all, I don't know, grainy or fuzzy or staticky, right? That's what's supposed to happen. So that didn't happen. So I wasn't that worried, because I was like, all right, so that weird electric stuff isn't happening like in the movies. It's not like it's suddenly becoming all sparkly and stuff. So my computer's probably fine. Is Sean Easton here? If Sean Easton was here, then I'm sure he'd have been able to help me out. Maximud Sisfarul says, do you think awakened powers need more explaining? Yeah, of course. But Oda hasn't, there'll be a time and place for that to be explained. So we're not there yet. So I think it's okay. I think we're kind of in the same stage we were when we were kind of learning about Haki, right? When we were initially, I think Sabaody through Marineford. Between Sabaody through Marineford, Haki was mentioned somewhat Haki was mentioned a few times. Haki was mentioned somewhat frequently. And we would see glimpses of it and uses of it by various characters. But it wasn't until the end of Marineford that Oda actually sat us down, gave us a full chapter explaining how Haki works. So I'm sure we're going to get that with Awakening. It's just not the time yet. Terry Martin says, imagine Gear 4th was revealed in a flashback where Luffy tells Nami, oh, I came up with a new gear, B2W. That's exactly what happened to Kid Law. Yeah, that's my biggest thing, all right? So here I'll go off on my little rant about the way Awakenings are done, or the way Kid and Law's Awakenings happen. So I think I was just kind of shocked to see what the discussion around it was, because I'm so many people, they're talking about stuff that doesn't really matter. So the main complaint about the Awakenings, right? Main complaint about the Awakenings that I saw from most people was, when did they learn this, right? So most people were complaining about the logistical aspect of it, right? When did Law and Kid learn this? When did Law and Kid learn this? Why didn't Law use it on the roof? Why didn't Kid use it on the roof? More so I think everybody, when they read this chapter, or a lot of people at least, when they read this chapter initially, a lot of people didn't like it for whatever reason. And I think a lot of people couldn't instinctively put their finger on why they didn't like it. So it kind of came down to more logistical stuff. So people going on Twitter, people going on into YouTube comments and such, right? Debating things it felt like an ass pull because we hadn't heard about it before. It felt like there were no hints that they'd gotten it before. When did they develop these things? Why did they not show it during the rooftop battle? Stuff like that. Those were all the questions. I feel like that's dancing around the main thing. The reason people can't really put their finger on why they didn't like it, right? And they're confusing it for logistical reasons, right? They want some sort of greater explanation, right? I don't think that's the real problem. I think it's more so because, how do I say this? It's a case of you don't know what's missing, right? When you, the reader, read this chapter, you can feel something is off or something is missing, but you can't really figure out what it is. So I'll just tell you right now. Oda, throughout the series, has always liked to do this thing where he has characters develop power-ups on the side and then reveals them during the battle. That's his thing. He likes to do that, right? With Haki, recently we've seen Haki being more so trained during battle and such itself. But in general, if you think about straight-up power-ups like Gears, Ashura, Diablo Jambe, Nico Robin's form, stuff like that, those type of power-ups, or even Nami's improved climb attack, things like that, or Sogeking's Kabuto. Oda just likes to have Straw Hats develop certain things off-screen and then reveal them in some sort of big climactic way, okay? And the reason we're so okay with this, the reason we like this so much throughout One Piece, what is one of the most iconic moments in One Piece? Gear 2nd's reveal, right? Doesn't matter that Gear 2nd, we didn't really see the training behind it. We only had one panel of Luffy on the side saying, oh, I'm working on something or something like that, right? On the way to Enies Lobby. Doesn't matter, we didn't get the explanation of how it worked right away. None of that stuff mattered, okay? What mattered, what made it such a cool moment, was how Oda built up to that moment. So Oda likes characters having a trick in their bag, and it works really well in One Piece because Oda does a really good job writing the flow of the fight to build up to a really climactic reveal, where Oda kind of pulls back the curtain and is like, ta-da, this is what they've been saving up. This is why it's so cool. And it usually comes with like, a lot of hype, a lot of fanfare. The battle builds up to it really well. The character usually has some really cool or interesting dialogue leading up to it. I think most impactful recent example is Nico Robin versus Black Maria. Read the entire ending section of that fight. I thought that was really, really well done, and classic Oda, the way that he likes to reveal power-ups. The reason Kid and Law's awakening did not hit for me, in my opinion, and I think for many other people, whether they realize it or not subconsciously, is the way that it was delivered was probably the most anticlimactic you could have ever possibly have written it. Right? Like, can you think of a way that is less dramatic, less climactic than how Oda actually did it? Because all Oda did was say, hey, you got awakening? Yeah, I got awakening. All right. And then they just used it, right? Like even their use of it wasn't that awe-inspiring or anything. Like the panels of Law using it are actually fairly small panels. It's a small panel of Big Mom getting shocked. Kid assigning magnetism to Big Mom, it's like 3 panels that just like fly by. It's just, it's really shocking because this is Devil Fruit Awakenings, an ability that's been built up and really hyped and has a lot of mystique around in the story and in the fandom. These are 2 characters, Luffy's 2 biggest contemporaries in the entire story, against Big Mom, right? So a Yonko, so the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th most powerful pirate in existence, right? One of the biggest antagonists in the story by far, one of the most long-running antagonists in the story by far. This is, in theory, as so many of people believe, if this is the final battle of Wano, then Kid and Law versus Big Mom is the 2nd most important battle in Wano right now, right? Kaido's number 1, Big Mom's number 2. So in theory, this is the 2nd most important battle. So the big moment when you want to reveal what the characters, what the protagonists have up their sleeve is, right? It's fine, in my opinion, that these characters worked on this ability and had this ability trained up off screen. To me, that's fine, because the way Oda usually introduces it is so good that we kind of accept it, right? Like, because Oda builds it up and introduces it into the story so well, in such a dramatic, memorable, iconic way. Like, Gear 4th had like 4, 5, 6 pages. It was like half a chapter of Luffy just like building up to the reveal that I have another gear, right? I have another gear. You've been doing all this shit. I've been like waiting to take you on. I'm not standing for it anymore. You think I'm in your way, you're in my way. Shit like that. And then finally just revealing I have another gear in the bag, right? Like that. Awakening is arguably bigger for Law and Kid than Gear 4th was for Luffy. Luffy still doesn't even have his awakening, right? Like, or it's at least comparable, and it's against a much more significant opponent. It's against freaking Big Mom. And on top of that, like, you can, again, look at Robin versus Black Maria. It's not like Oda forgot how to do this, right? It's not like Oda forgot how to write a great power-up reveal in the story, because if you read Robin versus Black Maria, an extremely minor fight in the grand scheme of things, Robin versus Black Maria, the build up to the reveal that Robin has not only this giant devil form, but this slap technique, beautifully done. Kid and Law's awakenings, I don't understand why people are so caught up in some bullshit that doesn't matter. Like, when did they learn it? It's like, who cares when the fuck they learned it? Aren't you upset that this scene was so bland? Aren't you upset that this scene feels like it could have been written by a 10-year-old? Like, if you told a 10-year-old, hey, Kid and Law have awakening and they're going to use it this chapter against Big Mom, this is probably how that 10-year-old would have written it. Like, that's the reality. It has none of Oda's classic, flair. It has none of what makes him such a, exciting storyteller to read. That's what's that's what's upsetting to me about the awakenings. All right? And like that's just the reality of it. Like, you read those 4 pages, I guarantee 80% of people in this chat right now could have written like those 4 pages exactly like that if they were given the task, hey, Kid and Law have awakenings against Big Mom. Write that into the story. It would probably go exactly like this. Because it's just, I don't get why Oda didn't try at all for this section for such a, like, seemingly climactic reveal. I don't know. So, wait, now let me check the chat and see how angry people are. That's it. Let's find out. Man, I'm so far behind. Okay, most people are on board with that. Most people are on board with that. That's the thing. It was just underwhelming. Like that, it doesn't matter if it's technically not established or something. Like, who gives a fuck? If this chapter had been done exciting, like in an exciting manner, like we're so used to One Piece power-ups in the past, all is forgiven. No one would have cared. It's because it was done in such a weird, abrupt way that then people are going back and being like, well, when did this get established? When did they work on it? Why didn't they learn it at this point or whatever? That's not the point. Like, if it would be an enjoyable chapter to read if it had just been done in Oda's usual style. Go back like a few fights to Robin versus Black Marine and you have something like 10 times better. That's it. All right, let me catch up on the other super chats. Got that off my brain. Where are we at? Miriam, the best subscriber, what's up? Who do you ship our Lord and Savior Zoro with? Other than swords, of course. I think Hiyori seems like the most likely ship if Zoro's gonna have one at the moment. I always, like, long term, I thought Zoro and Toshigi was a good It's weird because I don't like Toshigi's character that much. So it's not like I like that ship on paper because I'm like, Zoro deserves better, if that makes sense. But at the same time, I thought it fit well with like the story overall and like the relationship that was built up between those two characters, the dynamic between them. I thought it was good. Zoro and Hiyori seems a little more, yeah, I mean, it's newer, so I'm not as used to it. But it does seem like a more direct attempt at romance than Zoro and Toshigi, which was more so like hints at romance, but Zoro Hiyori seems more direct. Omarua says, Dellinger is half fishman, Robin / Jinbei can have kids. Who wants to think about Dellinger's parents having sex? A human and a fish. Disgusting. Cole says, could Law use his body switch to allow another person to take on Zoro's pain and let Zoro fight? Any chance Fujitora helps hold up Onigashima? I like the idea of Fujitora helping holding up Onigashima, especially if this is the final battle. So let's say the raid doesn't fail. I think it'd be cool to see, Momonosuke not able to hold on anymore, but then Fujitora could easily lift and move Onigashima back to wherever Onigashima is supposed to be. I think that'd be cool. As for the body switch thing, I don't quite understand. Allow another person to take on Zoro's pain and let Zoro fight. No, but then Zoro gets put into another body, and that body doesn't have Zoro's fighting capabilities, so it wouldn't work like that. Rasserat66 says, Shanks will join the Strats to fulfill his dream of sailing Galacto under the King of the Pirates. Sorry, Rasserat, I personally don't agree with that. Patrick Malone says, Wano has lots of upgrades with a cost. Zoro's medicine causes double pain. Kid-in-law's awakening uses up too much energy. Do you think Luffy will face a consequence for using Conqueror's coding without experience? I think that 2 things is not enough of a pattern. Not enough of a pattern to say that's a trend. I think it's not quite enough, but thanks. I do think that... Did you mention this on Twitter earlier? Twitter or somewhere? I'm not sure. Sometimes, because like a lot of people message or at me things on Twitter, so I'll see certain things and kind of remember, but like if I'm not like as engaged, it depends on if I respond or not, or like think about it or like try and like engage with it or whatever. I might have seen, maybe you said this on Twitter or something like that. So I think that there's not enough things yet to say that it's a pattern. Because I think you can go to other arcs as well, like, what's another arc with... Okay, so if you go to Enies Lobby, it's like, that's when Luffy first started using Gear Second. Gear Second takes off years of his lifespan. Chopper used the 3 Rumble Balls, which obviously had aftermath consequences for him. I think that there's other examples that you can find of, like, characters, like, you can find other arcs where characters used abilities that ended up having drawbacks. Maybe it's not as frequent as here, but I think that, like, it's just not frequent enough to say that it's going to be a trend, right? Maybe it's a trend, but I'm going to say, like, we need one more example or something like that. Although, by that logic, Chopper did, he he did have consequences as well for using Rumble Balls and Wano. So maybe it is a trend, right? He's in his grandpa form. Who knows? I don't really see what a direct consequence would be for using Conquerors, though, without experience, because that's just your spirit, right? It's not using, I don't think you use up your spirit in that same way. But we're not sure yet. Pete Garcia says, Awakened Law versus Doflamingo, who wins? Seems weird that he can last this long against Big Mom when he lost to Mingo not too long ago. No, I mean, but you got to keep in mind that, like, Big Mom has not been, there's two people involved in the fight, right? Like, there's two people involved in the fight, and, like, as far as we saw, Big Mom was more interested in in Kid. I think from every time we've cut over there, Big Mom's been more interested in Kid, and Law's always been, like, kind of attacking her from the side or from the back. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't seem like she gives a fuck that much about Law. So, look, I think it's really hard to scale Law at the moment because a lot of people are saying, like, well, Law did so many things. He also injured Kaido up on the roof and stuff. And it's like, yes, he did do all of those things, but, like, he also seems to be the most successful in a support role. Like, that's just the reality of it. Like, he's not as, like, in terms of straight up, like, hockey to hockey or, like, speed or whatever, like, he just seems better in a support role, you know, where he's adding his abilities into the fray while other characters are also doing work or kind of drawing attention, right? That's the sense I've gotten so far out of Law. So that's why I think it's very hard to scale him. I think it's entirely possible that he could be definitely above Doflamingo right now. I think it's entirely possible that not much has actually changed, except he has Awakening, and as long as Doflamingo doesn't get hit by that Awakening, Doflamingo still wins. I don't know. I think either of those two things are possible. Like, sure, Law didn't have Awakening against Doflamingo, but Doflamingo didn't use his Awakening against Law, right? I think, for the most part, Doflamingo did not use his Awakening against Law. Unless I'm forgetting something, I'm pretty sure that Doflamingo mainly uses Awakening against Luffy. So, you know, even without no Awakening, Doflamingo clearly ahead. Because that's the thing, right? Like, that's why I'm hesitant to put Law, like, bump Law up in the grand scheme of things, like so many are really quick to, because Law has really strong abilities, and clearly when there's other fighters involved, he's able to really, really make good use of them, but, like, when we saw him against Doflamingo, it just looked like when Law's against, like, a faster, stronger opponent with better hockey and stuff, those abilities don't really matter that much, right? Against Big Mom right now, yeah, he's getting his hits in because his hits are always when the opponent is, like, distracted with somebody else, right? So we've yet to see Law in a really, like, one-on-one scenario trying to hold his own against any of these figures. So, I mean, that's not to say it's not possible that Law's kind of gotten a lot stronger. I would personally need to see some evidence of it because I don't think I've seen that really yet. I think it's entirely possible. I don't think we can read enough into what's going on right now. Keenan says, I know it probably has never existed as a thought in your head, but if you have any kind of answer at all, what's the Jacket Fruit's Awakening? Okay, so actually it has, not the Jacket Fruit specifically, but, like, tomorrow's video is all about awakenings. Tomorrow's video is all about Devil Fruit Awakenings. So you'll get my in-depth thoughts on it because I go into Zoan, the types of Paramecia Awakenings that it seems like we have and what we can kind of make sense of and expect of them in the future. And some speculation on Logia Awakenings, because there is some strong indicators we have on what Logia Awakenings could be. So it's kind of a comprehensive look at everything we know so far, and try to put it together. So with that in mind, the Jacket Fruit, I think, falls into two categories. I think, okay, my guess, based on what I'm saying in tomorrow's video, my guess is if you did something like the Jacket Fruit, it would be that you could turn, so one is you can just turn yourself into a jacket and then someone can put you on, right? My guess would be that you can turn other people into jackets and then they can try those people on. Does that make sense? So for example, Bobby Funk and Kelly Funk, right? Bobby Funk, I believe, was the older one, so he could turn himself into a jacket and then Kelly Funk could wear him because Kelly Funk had a stronger body. I think if Bobby Funk awakened his fruit, it's possible that Bobby Funk could turn, like, Luffy into a jacket, and then Kelly Funk could wear Luffy and actually have Luffy's fighting skills and fighting spirit. Something along those lines. So that, maybe some variation of that, basically. But it would allow him to turn certain people or things into jackets that he could not before, I think. Christian McCurdy says, we agree that Foxy's awakening is Zawarudo, yeah? So I think that it's a lot of questions on awakening. Yeah, I think that, yeah. Foxy's awakening, I don't know if it would be Zawarudo, but I think it would be, maybe he could slow down or stop a lot more things than just like whatever he shoots his beams at. Maybe it becomes a much more expansive ability. I'm not sure. Anime Devil Hunter says, what are your problems with Wano? Rating out of 10. I'm not going to go into that too much because, like, you guys really, someone fucking clipped me, like, super duper out of context, being like, well, if the rate, well, I'm not even going to say it now, but some people, like, you guys are clipping me now and putting me on Twitter and Discord and stuff, like, taking things I say out of context. That's not cool. I thought we're all friends here in this stream. But I will say, problems with Wano, rating out of 10. Problems with Wano, I guess, I mean, it depends, like, okay, I won't even talk about the raid failing here, okay? I'll just say that if this is the final battle, then compared to past One Piece arcs, and I don't really want to get into the nitty-gritty of this here, because it's just something that, like, I can only really demonstrate or prove by doing an actual video where I can break down and show you, here is what was happening in this arc. Here are the panels. You can look at it. You can see differences in tone, character expression, character motivations, etc. versus in Wano. In Wano right now, it is quite empty relative to previous arcs in terms of actual drama, stakes, or tension, right? That's it just is. And I think a lot of people try and point things to me like, what are you talking about? Like, they're up against a Yonko. The castle's on fire. Like, Luffy lost against Kaido twice. Like, these are all factual stakes. It's like, that's not how storytelling works, bro. Tone is something, like, you need to actually compare the run of chapters, the feeling that is communicated through those chapters, and kind of the general, like, how Oda is having characters act, the way he is portraying certain events, how often Oda is mixing up, you know, bits of lighthearted tension-breaking moments versus actually trying to bring up tension. It's totally different, and it's largely because Wano has been very smooth sailing so far. Onigashima has been very smooth sailing. There have been little to no, like, actual low points in this battle so far. It's been fairly straightforward, right? And, I mean, even last chapter, stuff with characters supposedly dying, like, even that is just being glossed over, right? I'm not saying I expected Kinemon to be dead. I'm just saying that, like, the reality is that, like, we're kind of, it's been an easy ride for the most part, okay? And in general, like, even if that's not the case, it's more so I don't really know what moments in Wano feel powerful to me. Because, like, there's a difference between hype moments. I think Wano has had hype moments. I think Onigashima has had hype moments, mainly just on the roof, to be honest, right? So mainly just Luffy, Kaido related stuff and a bit of Zoro stuff. So mainly just, like, if that's your thing, like, it's just hype moments for Luffy and Zoro, then Wano does have that. But, like, if I look at, like, an arc like Enies Lobby or Alabasta or Arlong Park, like, there are storytelling moments, character moments, like, dramatic, powerful, impactful moments that make me tear up, that, like, really emotionally move me, that make me want to go back and just, like, reread that section of the arc without even getting to the fights, right? I'm not actually, like, when I go back to reread parts of certain arcs, I don't just skip to the fights. Sometimes I'm not even, like, looking to read those fights. Sometimes I'm actually just looking to read, like, the story section of the series, right? And I don't really know why people like Wano so much, to be honest, because when people talk about why Wano is so good, they mostly just talk about Roof Piece. So, I mean, I guess I get why people like Wano a lot, but I don't get what's the juicy, dramatic stuff that you're really enjoying out of this, you know? Because there hasn't been that much focus on the Straw Hats, and as far as I know, most people don't actually like the Scabbards that much. I don't think people have, like, some sort of classic tearjerker moment in mind with the Scabbards. So I don't really know what people are saying is so good about Wano. That's the reality of it. I literally don't know. I like Momonosuke. I think Momonosuke's had some good moments and some potential for some really good moments. But what's funny is a lot of people don't even like Momonosuke. So the one or two parts of the arc that I think are like kind of hitting storytelling wise, people then don't like those. But that's just me, you know. That's just me. I liked Yasue's death. That's one part. I liked Yasue's death. I did like Yasue's death. I don't think it like ranks that high in the series long term for me, but in the context of the Wano arc, I thought Yasue's death was an emotional strong point for sure. And I liked Oden's death, but Oden's story feels so disconnected from the main story of Wano. It's kind of like this, like Skypiea, I don't consider a very emotionally compelling arc, but I view it as having like a good backstory, but that backstory is very like it's fairly disconnected from the modern day events. Right? It kind of explains a lot of why what's happening today is happening and what's been passed on. But it's not like a direct one-to-one like Nami's backstory or Chopper's backstory or, a Law backstory or a Robin backstory where it's all like the momentum of that backstory plays directly into how like it flows straight into what's happening today, right? Oden's backstory, I felt more so, it felt like a strong epic moment for Oden, but it didn't do that much to endear me more to the Scabbards. So again, the Scabbards don't hit that hard for me in the modern day story. So that's more so it. Like, so when people are like, why don't you like Wano that much? To me, it's more like, why do you guys like Wano? Like, what's the really, like, what's your I want to live moment? Or what's your, like, help me? Or what's your, like, you guys get what I'm saying? Like, what's the juice of this arc? Because the roof piece stuff is cool, but that's about it. Like, to be blunt, there are a lot of others, like, roof piece is cool, but, like, I could just go watch Dragon Ball Z for that. You know what I mean? Like, there are other series that do that shit as good or better. Like, I could watch Luffy split the sky with Kaido, but I could watch, like, Goku split reality with Broly. Like, that's not the main thing I read One Piece for at the end of the day. Like, it's part of it for sure. I'm not pretending like, oh, I don't care about the fights. I care about the fights a lot, but it's just like, what makes it One Piece and like the story I love more than any other story, that stuff has not really been there for me in Wano. Hold on. I kind of want to see what chat's feelings are on this. So let me take a look. Kind of trying to scroll back through. Yeah, so people are saying Oden's death. I'm not trying to say this as like an attack. I'm just saying like, what are the moments that you guys really like? Someone like Woe Superior saying Queen is holding this arc together. The Oden flashback. So I think the Oden flashback was good for reveals, right? But Rogers. Okay, if you're talking about the Rogers stuff, at that point, like that's not the Wano story though, right? Like Rogers stuff is like tiers removed from like the Wano story, right? Like that's practically like a separate story. I'm saying like why here today during this battle of Onigashima, right? Like that, like the Roger Laughed stuff, like Roger finding Laugh-Tale, that's cool, but like in Onigashima, like the narrative that we built up to of like defeating Kaido and freeing Wano, it's not exactly related, right? Like it's not. I almost don't even really look at that. What do you call? Wano's been a crazy great ride so far. I mean, it's been a ride. It's got fights. I agree. I'm trying to see. It's a blast. It's potential top 1. Darnell says Oden, Roger, Whitebeard. Okay, maybe does it make more sense if I'm saying that like, Roger and Whitebeard sections don't really, to me, that's not really the Wano arc, because like that felt more like we're in the middle of Oden's flashback, right? Which is relevant to the Wano arc, of course. And then we take a detour, find out more about Roger and Whitebeard, where Oden's kind of a passenger. So it's kind of tangentially related to Wano. And then I'm talking about the narrative of Wano. If I'm talking about like just Roger's adventure, to me that feels a little different. It's kind of like like the Reverie stuff, I don't view that as part of Wano's storyline, even if it's technically part of the Wano arc. It's something that sure happened in this span of time, but it's not quite. I'm talking about like why am I invested or loving this narrative to defeat Kaido and defeat the Beast Parts here? So I'm not sure yet. Trying to find some stuff. People just say it's good, but why are you? Wano Act 1 and 2 are strong. Some people are saying Toby Roppo are trash. One person, Rojas the Mighty, says I'm a fan of the Scabbards, first person to say that. Which is funny to me, because I'm like, yeah, Wano doesn't focus on the Straw Hats that much, and people are like, well, Morge, it's actually about the Scabbards. And then I'm like, okay, so you guys must really fucking love the Scabbards. They must be your favorite fucking characters in the series, if you're saying, like, Wano's not about the Straw Hats, it's about the Scabbards, and we love Wano. Like, that's not like either, like, that argument makes sense if you love the Scabbards, and they're, like, 11 out of 10 characters for you, and, like, that's why you love Wano. But if we're at a point where I'm like, okay, so it's not about the Straw Hats, and you guys are telling me about the Scabbards. It's about the Scabbards. You guys don't even really like the Scabbards. Then why the fuck do you like Wano? Just tell me, demonstrate to me that it's not just Roof Piece. That it's not just like Luffy split the sky with Kaido. Because again, go watch Dragon Ball Z. They will do some crazy shit out there you wouldn't even believe. This sky splitting stuff, it's a fucking joke compared to that. So I'm just trying to see if there's something else, you know? Straw Hats fights in Wano are so disappointing. Some people are just saying like Wano Act 1 and Act 2 is good, but like what is it? What's up? Why are you guys liking it? Maybe it's because the comments are too short here. I'm not sure. Maybe you can't explain in full. Podcast Ace, I still got hope the tension and emotion will pick up, but Wano top 5 regardless. I just don't get it. Like, I don't get what that means then. What does that mean? I feel as though Wano is top 5 just because it's supposed to be top 5. Because it's like, well, it's just Wano. It's the arc that's been built up to for so long. It's like, okay, and if you are not allowed to mention Roof Piece, what do you really like about it? And it's like, then some vague shit, basically. Probably Yamato. Lol. Yeah, sure. Ulti's ties. I like the Yasue stuff. I agree. But then are you going to say that Yasue's death was like even a top 10 moment in One Piece for you? Like, I thought it's a good moment and one of the better moments post time skip. I think it's probably the most emotional moment in Wano for me personally. Alan Grinville says, what's the problem with liking Wano? There's no problem in liking Wano. I just want to know why. That's it. Because you flip this into me attacking you guys for liking Wano. That's not the case. I'm the one that gets attacked when I say I don't like this aspect of Wano. So I'm just trying to turn back the question to being like, okay, why do you guys like Wano? And then that's all I'm trying to get at, kind of. All right. I don't know. Okay, we're not going to go back and forth on this, I guess. All right, let's catch up on the super chats. Wait, I was just told I missed an important super chat. An important super chat? From Keenan. Sean Easton says, drain the water from your laptop ASAP and wipe it with a towel afterwards. If not, you could risk it dying. I think I got it, Sean, because I did. I wiped it with a towel. How do I drain the water? I think we're fine, but I appreciate it. I think we're fine. Think we're fine? Yeah. I don't think Wano's like it's just hard to tell. Tazkid Ride says like Wano represents the culmination of everything so far. Yeah, so to me like that's not like a reason like that's why I want to like Wano. I think I really, really want to like Wano, but I'm just waiting for the storytelling that I'm so used to One Piece having kind of coming up, like, and it's not even like I'm saying like Oda's supposed to do this, right? there's nothing that I can't think what the moment would be that Oda is supposed to do. It's just like, I didn't know Oda was going to write like the Ohara backstory the way he did, or like have the Straw Hats declare war on the world and like Frankie destroy the blueprints. That's all just brilliant, genius storytelling by Oda. And that's why I love One Piece, that it's like Oda's able to come up with such emotionally powerful, dramatic, compelling ideas and ways to construct the narrative. So I just haven't felt that way throughout most of Wano. So if you're like, well, what would you have? What do you feel like is missing from Wano? I'm like, I don't know, Oda's magic. Like I don't know what the phrasing for it is, because like I don't know what the magic is. That's like Oda changes it every time, right? Or like he's able to come up with new ideas, new ways to, I like, for example, Raizo Dono is safe. For me, that to this day still stands as like that, and I think the Odin backstory, right? Odin backstory I think was like tricky because I'm talking about Odin raising the scabbards up. Because I think like there's certain classic One Piece sort of storylines that I feel like you never get in other series. So Raizo Dono is safe. I think that's a moment. Yeah, that's a moment that I just don't think you would ever see in another story. Right? Like, it's a twist. It's a huge plot twist. It's just like this, such a infusion of like, surprising joy and like warm-heartedness and like just kindness that you just don't expect out of anywhere. It's I don't know. It's hard to explain. It's just like a very impactful moment, and it's like such an interesting storyline that Oda crafted that you wouldn't expect in a story, right? Like all this buildup of like these two, dog and cat, hate each other. They had their civilization destroyed, etc. Like they were tortured, all for the sake of this samurai, right? That they keep saying is not there. We're continually led to believe that like they, fought and bled over all of this, and were just like so brutally put through the ringer over this shit that they were like helpless to stop and couldn't even stop because they didn't have the samurai. And then we're led to believe that like the one thing that they can absolutely not find out about is that there's a samurai around here, right? That there's samurai like Kinemon and Kanjuro with them, right? Because like that's, we fully understand that like the existence of the samurai alone basically destroyed their entire civilization. And then we find out that they've been defending the samurai. Like that's, I don't know how to explain it, but like that's part of the, I guess what you would call Oda magic. Like that's such a creative way to lead to a conclusion that you would not expect, but that conclusion hits you so hard and like lasts with you for so long because it's just, I don't know, it gives you a bit of a rush, right? Like I will never forget Zou, and like not just because of the poneglyph reveals and like the path to Pirate King or whatever, but I think the arc already peaked with that Raizo is safe moment. And then everything else on top of that was just gravy, right? So I don't think that, like, when I'm like, Wano, is it like, it's so hard to explain because Oda is so good at coming up with new storylines, right? Like, you could go back a little bit and be like, Senor Pink or something like that, right? I just feel like there hasn't been that much for me in Wano, right? It just feels like it's kind of going through the motions. And then even the fights, I think the roof fights are good, but I don't really love the Toby Robo fights at all. And I don't think that the side characters are that compelling for me. Where were we at? Anuj Agarwal says, why do you think Vinland went downhill after the farm? Dude, that's too much to explain. I think that the farm, I personally think that the first two arcs of Vinland, right, like so everything up to chapter 100, like up there with like, I don't know, probably my favorite reading experience ever, like up there with any other reading experience. I think I was ready to be like, Vinland Saga is like, my top two favorite. I was obsessed with that series up to chapter 100. I think everything after chapter 100, here's the problem in a nutshell, right? And maybe if I do a longer Vinland video at some point, I can get more in depth into it. I think Vinland in the first two arcs did a really, really powerful job constructing not only the arc of the main character, but the lessons that it is trying to impart, right, through the journey of the main character, okay? So the lessons and the themes of Vinland Saga were really, 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 really well constructed, right? It knew exactly how it's building up the ideas that it's building up, and every significant beat of the story serves to reinforce those ideas and the weight of those ideas, right? So war, slavery, like just everything that comes with violence begets like injustice begets slavery, etc. Like everything that comes with this, all of the baggage that comes with this particular path and like what war brings, right? I think it did an amazing, really, really beautiful job of building all of that up and communicating that and getting the main character to a point where he had this sort of epiphany and like comes across this new path by the end of that farm arc, right? Like I think you know the interaction I'm talking about, right? By the time Thorfinn is ready to talk to Canute again, he has achieved almost a state of enlightenment and realized this new path, and it's a really refreshing path for a manga protagonist. I'm very interested to see how it goes there, how it follows through with this path, right? I think a lot of what happens post chapter 100 and in the arcs following the farm arc actually contradict or cheapen, in a way, a lot of the lessons and ideas and messaging from the first two acts, and it approaches the previous subjects that it tackled with such seriousness and gravity and weight. It tackles those same subjects, but now undercuts a lot of it with comedy or levity or not treating it as seriously and then suddenly trying to treat it seriously again, but then at the same time, like sometimes making a joke out of it and sometimes kind of bending the rules of what counts as like, violence or not violence. And I think a lot of it is actually, a lot of that next arc walks back on Thorfinn's progress as a character and says, oh, you thought that Thorfinn had progressed this far? Actually, he's more like over here. Like he hasn't actually progressed that much as a character. He has, but not nearly as much as you thought. And I never think that that's good character writing when like you kind of, in my opinion, when you kind of write an arc to say a character has gotten to a certain point and then kind of go back on it and say, well, actually didn't get to that point yet. They kind of need to redo that or something like that. Like, I don't know if I'm getting across clearly exactly what I'm saying, because I would need to pull up examples and such, but that's the sense I got with Vinland. So I'm not actually looking forward to revisiting that series anymore. I probably will finish it, when it finishes, but it just felt like the arc following the farm arc really took away from a lot of what it had done so well to me. Keenan says, thoughts on Kanjuro's character as a whole. If this is actually his death, kind of feel bad for him at the end of the day. He was nothing but a puppet. My opinion, if Kanjuro, if Kanjuro didn't die right then, I would now rather he stay alive for a bit, because his ability and his story has potential to be very interesting, I think. His story has potential to be very interesting, and his ability, I feel like we've just scratched the tip of the iceberg with his ability. So I feel like with his ability, there's so much more that can be done. I didn't know he could create fire. I didn't know he could create a fire demon. So both aspects, I think, like as a character, like as a villain, I think he presents a very interesting villain. As a character, right, like how he could kind of evolve by the end of all this, or like the full tragedy of his character, I think could be fleshed out a little bit more. And his abilities, I think that his abilities, have so much potential. So to me, I'm almost a little happy that Kanjuro is not dead. I would be more disappointed if this was his last breath and he's kind of done after the fire demon, because I would prefer if Kanjuro, if he's staying alive, I would rather him stay alive and we get some more out of him. Lawrence Davis says, will it make sense for Zoro to fight Shanks? I don't think that Oda's going to go that route, just because Shanks and Luffy, Zoro and Mihawk, those feel like the two really tight connections, And Mihawk's the one who holds the title. I think that however Oda wants to play the discrepancy between swordsman versus not swordsman or whatever, I think Oda's going to keep it to Mihawk gets Zoro, Luffy gets Shanks. Chris Roshan says, I received more March plush. It looks good. Thank you. It looks a little off to me, but I'm glad that you guys enjoyed them. Keenan, thank you again. Sean Easton. Oh, no. Yeah, it's that Sean Easton drain the water thing. All right. AJH17 says, are you excited for Elbaf? Anything you're hoping to see there? I'm definitely excited for Elbaf, but, I think a lot of it will hinge on, how Wano kind of ties up, because I might feel like a little bit of One Piece fatigue post-Wano, depending on how things go. After Dressrosa, people don't know this, but because I wasn't a YouTuber back then, after Dressrosa, I took a solid break from One Piece for, a few months, and then I got to read, I think, the first 10 chapters of Zou all in a row. So that was nice. I just enjoyed the breather. And Zou was a much cleaner arc from start to finish, so much less craziness going on. I suspect Elbaf will not be a huge scale war like Wano, so I think it'll also be a simpler, tighter arc. And I think the things I'm looking forward to most are basically everything that I said in my Shanks and Elbaf video. So I hope that Shanks and his crew are there. I hope we get like a Davy back fight or something like that. I would love for Mihawk to be there as well. I hope Usopp and his dad, all of that stuff. Cigar Verk says, with so many plot points in the air, even if the raid does not fail, the arc won't have a simple solution. Wano has been one of the most complex One Piece arcs. Yes, I definitely agree. Wano has one of the most complex, probably the most running plot points out of any One Piece arc. Yeah, probably. Probably. I don't know, I'd have to like look at everything, but yeah, I think so. Definitely one of the most complex One Piece arcs. If not the most. Brandon King says Napoleon was defeated at Waterloo and exiled to Elbaf. I mean, that's interesting, but like, so I always say this when it comes to theories and stuff. Look, like, I don't know. I never know how much stock to put in like the real world influences and references. Because, again, there's so many examples you can point to where Oda's just naming a character because he thinks it's like a cool sounding name. Like, again, Magellan is my go-to example. Nothing about Magellan's character has any relationship to the actual explorer Magellan, right? Like, it's just, he just wanted to name him Magellan, and that's it at the end of the day. Muhammad says, Law is so boring as a character after Dressrosa. Do you agree? I was never a huge Law fan in the first place, but I can't speak on Law. Here's the thing. I can't speak on Law because everything for me about Law comes from a place of bias. Because I didn't like Law from Punk Hazard onwards. The main reason being, and it's not like a logical reason, okay? It's purely because, keep in mind, me, weekly reader, all right? Weekly reader, you've just finished Marineford, you haven't seen all of these Straw Hats in so long, right? You've just been reading about Luffy for so long, you haven't seen the whole crew together in so long. Then Oda goes on like a 4-week break after Marineford, so now you're really dying to see what the Straw Hats are like at the end of this time skip. You really just want to see the Straw Hat crew all together kicking ass in the New World. We get to Fishman Island, right? And Fishman Island, there's not like, you know, the toughest opponents, so it's kind of a wash. So we kind of just get like a glimpse of what the Straw Hats can do. So I'm like, all right, New World. Now we're in the New World. Now we get to see Straw Hats doing big time stuff, making big time waves, fighting big time opponents in the New World. In the New World, One Piece turned into the Trafalgar Law Show for 150 chapters. Maybe a little less, let's say 120 chapters. But from the start of Punk Hazard till near the end of Dressrosa, the main character was Trafalgar Law, alright? From literally, I think about chapter 650, whatever, when Law was introduced, through the point that Luffy swapped in for Law against Doflamingo, it was the fucking Trafalgar Law show. It was Trafalgar Law and friends. He was the main character. And here's the thing. I would have enjoyed him more as the main character if I wasn't annoyed that, like, I had been waiting so long to see these other guys, and now this dude is the spotlight. Not even Luffy. For the first time, Luffy he kind of played second fiddle to Law for most of, like, Punk Hazard and Dressrosa. Law fought the strongest opponent there. It was Law and Doflamingo storyline for all of Dressrosa. Luffy was, you know, off fighting Jinzhou and shit and dressing up as Lucy. Zoro was running around chasing fairies. Sanji was shipped off to another island. Most of the Straw Hats were shipped off to another island. It was mainly the Trafalgar Law show up until the very end when it was like, okay, it's time for business. Luffy's the star. Luffy's going to take down Doflamingo. Luffy's going to beat up the big bad, right? So obviously, and then from there on, you know, it's become the very Luffy-centric series, more so than even maybe pre-time skip. But like, yeah, I think I've always had like a bit of a annoyance with Law, which was never really fair. It was just like, you know, it just happened to be that section of the story. It was just Law was going to play a bigger role, and now he's actually in a much smaller role. And I don't think anyone would ever say that. Oh, it feels like Law is taking the spotlight from the Straw Hats. No one would say that nowadays. If I'd known the full scope of it, maybe I could have appreciated his character more at that time. But at that point in time, you know, I've been waiting so long for the Straw Hats to fuck shit up in the New World. And instead, it's Law beating up Smoker, who's been Luffy's rival for so long. Fucking Trafalgar Law comes in and beats him up first. And then Law beating Virgo, the toughest character in Punk Hazard. And then, like, you know, Dressrosa, Law's the one calling the shots, making the plans, telling everyone what to do. He's fighting Doflamingo and Fujitora on this island. while like Luffy's fighting Ideo in the Colosseum and shit. Like that's it. So it was more so just like I don't like I don't know, like mistrust of this new guy. Basically, I was just like, I don't care about this character, and I'm not going to bother to care about this character. I want my characters back, basically. But now I like Law better. So long way of saying, I don't know if he's been boring after Dressrosa or not, because I've just never cared about him that much. I think he's solid. The last chapter he fought Big Mom. But yeah, he hasn't had that much character stuff since Dressrosa. A lot of it's wrapped. I think what is interesting, if you want to get real, is like his pursuit of the Will of D. I kind of wrote Law off after Dressrosa because I said most of his character threads have closed, therefore it makes sense for him to die soon. I remember Brago told me like, no, but he's still interested in the Will of D. He clearly still has a character point, character story going forward. I was like, no, that's not that important. What do you know? We get to Wano. Turns out that, he is still interested in the Will of D. And that is a long-running pursuit for him. So that can be used in different ways. Lupin 1 says the casual way they introduce kids and Law's awakening means Luffy almost definitely either already has awakened or will during the Kaido fight. I wouldn't go that far. I think that... Actually, this is two questions. So somebody else, Cameron Mitchell, also said, do you think Luffy will get awakening like Law and Kid? So I'll answer both of these here. I would rather... This is one of those things where I would just rather not, because the direction of Luffy's improvements throughout this arc just become a little too all over the place, because then it's like armament plus advanced conquerors plus awakening, and it just feels like, here's the thing, I think conquerors takes, I don't know, I just feel like conquerors feels more important in the context of this fight. And if you go back through the themes of this arc or whatever, like what's been being iterated more and more, it is that conqueror spirit. Even Luffy and Kaido's first interaction, right? The culmination of it, if you read that, and like the aftermath of it, it's about conqueror's haki. So Luffy and Kaido, to me, it always comes down to like, this is a test of Luffy's spirit, Luffy's conqueror's spirit. I think awakening is a bit of a sort of divergent idea from that. And it's just something that like, hasn't been on Luffy's radar verbally whatsoever at all. Like, at least with each of his haki awakenings, we've seen Luffy kind of like that's a conscious goal that Luffy's been developing, right? So I think it would be, I wouldn't say it's like out of the blue if this is the arc that Luffy gets awakening. I just think that it's a little more fitting or more narratively congruent for this arc to really come down to Luffy and his ability to use advanced Conqueror's haki, right? And I've been on that advanced Conqueror's haki train for a long time, as far back as my Wano Act 2 analysis. That's still something that I really hold up, by the way, that like during a period of time that every single person, everyone, every YouTuber, Reddit threads, YouTube comments, etc., everyone was talking about fucking Rio and armament haki and how this is the arc that Luffy's going to beat Kaido with advanced armament haki. That's the key to beating Kaido. Then Luffy will get advanced conquerors in Elbaf, right? So then, Whole Cake was observation, Wano is armament, and then conquerors is Elbaf, this weird theory people made up for no real reason. And I'm telling you, everyone, like, no, if you look at the themes of Wano, if you look at what characters are repeatedly talking about, yes, armament is the power-up that's being played up more, but thematically, spirit and conqueror spirit specifically is what this arc is more so about. Ergo, armament is a red herring. It is a stepping stone to the much more important power-up, which is Conqueror's haki. So, yeah, I think Conqueror's haki is more important. I don't know if Awakening is going to be the key to beating Kaido. But it could be, just because it's being hinted at so much now with Kid and Law getting it. Groovy Zeno says Admiral Green Bull equals Lieutenant Iron Fist full body. That would be an amazing twist, but I don't know if that's how it's going to play out. Anime Devil Hunter says, Morge, I swear to God I feel the same way about Wano. I'm not trying to turn people up against Wano. I'm just legitimately curious, because here's the thing, I legitimately do wonder if, like, how many people like Wano because we're supposed to like Wano because it's the big arc, and then how many people, like, are genuinely, like, feeling, like, really emotionally pushed and pulled, and, like, if I could go back and somehow measure people's emotions during, like, the Enies Lobby arc, and, like, Robin's backstory, and, like, the Usopp Luffy fight, and, like, everything that happened in the middle section of the arc up till declaring war on the world. If I could go somehow like objectively measure that, and then come over here and like measure you guys as you're reading Wano, I don't know. I wonder how many people would feel the same way. Or if it's just like, you know, as I've seen some people say, confirmation bias, that like we're supposed to like Wano, therefore we do like Wano, therefore we just kind of like chalk it up to Roof Piece being really good or whatever. Monkey D Meme says, oh wait, I missed it. Adrian Hakeem says, I believe that the possibility of the Tobiropa coming back is heightened now that Usopp is heading towards Keku, or at least page 1 coming back is. Yeah, Usopp's interesting. Usopp usually gets something significant over the course of the arc, so I'm really interested in Usopp actually getting his, getting a moment, it looks like, soon. It's really hard to tell what it is. I don't know if it's the Tobiropo getting back up, though. That's hard to say. Usopp very rarely has an arc where he doesn't get something significant, a major arc where he doesn't get something significant. Monkey D Meme says, Wano right now reminds me of Black Clover's Spade Kingdom arc. Tons of hype moments, but not much drama or tension. Hard disagree. I think that the Spade Kingdom arc is the example of what Wano should be. I'm actually shocked that, like, because I go over to the Black Clover subreddit sometimes, I'm like, these guys are so ungrateful. So ungrateful. The Spade Kingdom arc, right, the arc begins with them basically getting crushed on all fronts, right? So Black Bulls lose, Golden Dawn loses, the entire fucking Heart Kingdom loses, everyone's crushed on all fronts, and like the three characters that are each the most important to each of the three main protagonists, so Asta, Noelle, and Yuno, they each have their most important person or their mentor figure essentially taken from them. I think that that's good. For Black Clover standards, that is good. It's not like anything crazy. It's not like people are dying left and right. And I understand that, you know, Black Clover is really bad with killing people, arguably worse than One Piece. I think it's literally worse than I think Black Clover is one of the worst series of killing people. But for Black Clover, I think, yeah, this is good narrative story structure. You start off the characters on a high note, confident that they're going to take down the Spade Kingdom, then have your dreams crushed, then you have characters rise back up to try and take them down. And now, you know, I think actually that the battles that I've read against the Spade Kingdom, they've been pretty good. I thought Noelle's battle was actually great. I thought that it actually closed a lot of aspects of her long-running character threads. I thought it had good back and forths. I thought that the amount of force that was needed to defeat the opponent, with so many characters coming together to do it, I thought that most of it was good. I thought that it actually leads better than, you know, any Wano fight by far. Like, a Wano fight will take place in, you know, a third of a chapter, and not much is it's kind of just gonna fly by. Whereas at least the Noelle fight, there's a lot of character stuff that's going on in that fight. It spans many, many chapters, and there's many, many back and forths, and there's actually a story to the fight. So, yeah, I'm not afraid to say it. Like, I think that, you know, if you just compare the two, no, I think that Wano could take a page out of the the Clover Kingdom, of the Spade Kingdom arc right now. It's funny because Black Clover has accumulated such a long-running reputation as being a bad series that, like, when it's actually doing some stuff right, I think people don't want to give it credit. And I think the Spade Kingdom arc is actually probably an arc that, like, just the heavy points, the low points, the dramatic tension, etc., that was earlier, right? And we're reading week to week, so we don't remember it that much. So it's actually all there. It's just that, you know, you probably don't remember it because it was like 8 months ago. But it was all there. So, you know, we had the setup section, the fall, now we're in the Resurgent Rise. Maybe you don't think the Resurgent Rise is that good, but, like, I think it's following good beats of a story, and it's making a pretty decent story. You know, I think it's very different from Wano, where there was literally never a low point. Literally no section in the story where the tone was consistently dark and heavy and low. The closest you can get to is, like, the Yasue death scene, but that was like a drop in a bucket compared to, like, you know, like, you literally have that juxtaposed with Luffy taking over Udon and being like, fuck yeah, we're going to do this, right? Like, I think almost no one remembers that as a heavy portion of the arc. AJH17 says, did you like Kanjuro/Kurozumi storyline? I like Kanjuro as a character. I do like Kanjuro as a character. I'm actually very interested in, like, I don't know if I like the Kanjuro-Kurozumi storyline. I would like Kanjuro as an avenue to open up exploring the Kurozumi storyline, if that makes sense. Baba says, what is your favorite Yum Time meal? #BobThots. I like burgers. I think burgers are my favorite meal. Monkey D Meme says, stop criticizing Wano. You're going to make Oda and the editors cry. This is an attack on them and their character. You should be ashamed of yourself. Shouts to people who saw Joy Boy's video. He made a, in my opinion, rather... Monkey D Meme is being sarcastic here, by the way. He's referencing Joy Boy's video, which is, I think, a little too far in terms of trying to respond to Dritz's video. If you want to respond to Dritz's video, then respond to the video, not to the general concept of criticism, and not with the argument that you're going to upset Oda and his editors. Enma298 says, regardless of opinion, I think the most important thing to remember is the arc isn't quite done yet. Love the vids, BTW. Yes, the arc is not quite done yet. It is entirely possible that, like, next chapter, if it continues the Kid Law versus Big Mom fight, we get, like, a bunch of amazing character stuff for Kid and Law, and, like, we get a really dramatic story out of it. It is entirely possible. And I think that, I think certain moments like Momonosuke holding up Onigashima, I think I'm definitely going to like that. And I'm sure that Oda still has more surprises up his sleeve. Udona Uchugubu says, Luffy's speech in Udon Prison conveyed how much of a leader he has become. Yeah, I agree. I think I talk about that, like, in my Wano Act analysis. Like, I've covered that sort of stuff. Like, I understand what some of the ideas and messages that are going around in Wano, I think, very, very well. I think, like, so far I'm the only person who's done, like, a very comprehensive breakdown of, like, all of the ideas and themes that are going on in Wano. I still intend to do one at the end of Act 3. It's just that, like, you can have a lot of ideas. It's, like, how strong is the narrative pulling you in emotionally? And at least that's, for me, that's not quite as strong. For me. Weekly Shonen Jump Punch says, this is the best art we've ever had. Then the lore and the world building, we haven't even gotten the full lore implications of Wano, and I'm attached. This is the best art we've ever had? I would recommend you read, like, almost any pre-time skip chapter, dude. I think Wano has good, I think there's good spreads. So when, like, Oda gets the chance to, like, not just scrunch all of the panels, and he gets a chance to, like, draw a nice spread, I think they've been really good panels. And probably Oda, technically as an artist, like, when he gets the chance to try on a panel, like a big panel, that's probably better than it was pre-time skip. But, like, in a given chapter, no, the art is significantly more rushed, less detailed, less clean, everything, like, it's almost, like, not even comparable. Like, I kind of know this because it's my job. Like, I pull panels from across the series, and it's, like, you can glance at any panel and be like, okay, pre-time skip, post-time skip, because and especially how far post-time skip, because it's, like, the average panel in the Wano arc is, like, kind of crude, to be blunt. But when Oda gets his good panels, they're very good. They're better than pre-time skip. So it depends, I guess, on how you want to compare the art. I think, like some of the spreads in Wano, like Kaido showing up, I think a lot of the spreads in Wano, there's a lot of, even just the first chapter, right, where we get that spread of Wano as we open up the curtain to it, that's beautiful. That's probably better than what you would get pre-time skip. But I'm saying, like, if I read a chapter pre-time skip versus reading a chapter in the Onigashima battle right now, 10 out of 10 times the art is way better in that pre-time skip chapter than it is right now. And it's not really that close. I think you'd have to have, like, a really strange definition of, like, what you like as art to argue that, like, a full panel of this is, like, even close to a full panel of that. I think you could, or, like, full chapter of this is even close to a full chapter of that. I think, again, you can find single panels in Wano that are better than a single panel in pre-time skip. That's for sure. So it's a balance. Lore and world building, yeah, that's true. I think Wano's definitely gotten some good lore and world building. The Sun God stuff, definitely interesting. Wait, what happened to my chat? What did I do to it? Oh, shoot. Let me pop it out again. I feel like I've been talking a lot nonstop. Let me take a second, let this chat load up. Because I've been saying some stuff that I don't know how it's been going over exactly. You know what I mean? The super chat backlog? Let's see. Pirate Hero says, from Yamil Diaz, could Zunisha help Momo hold up Onigashima? I don't know how Zunisha would, like, get there. Like, I don't know how he would would he have to run onto the land? Like, would you run onto I don't really know how you do it. Yeah, Redx says, I'm tired of people bringing up Luffy losing to Kaido and getting sent to Udon as if it were a low point. Do these people not comprehend that the Straughts are literally not worried about anything? Yeah, that's the thing. Like, a low point is, it's not like what technically happened in the plot. It's how it affects the characters and overall tone of the story. And the tone of the story was not, by definition of tone, which you can go look up right now, the tone of the story did not change during the Udon section, right? You can literally see the Straughts' reactions and the way they talk and act about it, as well as Luffy's own views on it and his spirits, etc. throughout it. The tone does not change in Udon, right? So it's not a low point in the story, by the definition of a low point. All right. Can't really see chats further back than that. Weekly Shonen Punch says, I'm not a fan of the pre-time skip art. Yeah, maybe that's, maybe you don't like the pre-time skip art, so I don't know. Like, I think that on average it's at least, clearer, more time put into sort of like the, giving everything sort of like space and visual clarity, and a bit more effort on like shading, detail, etc. on faces and expressions and such. But that's on average. There are definitely, again, like, I think there's a lot of panels post-time skip that are, I think a lot of the best panels, like, artistically in the series you'll find are probably post-time skip. I think the classic one that people show is, like, Ryugu Palace, the Fishman Island Palace, and that's a post-time skip panel. I think Whole Cake Island, here's the thing. You know what? It's not even pre-time skip, post-time skip as much, because I think Whole Cake Island had, and I argued this in my Whole Cake Island video, I think Whole Cake Island had some of the best art consistently throughout the arc. Like, not even just for single panels. I think Whole Cake Island, Oda really got to, like, stretch his artistic abilities. And it was, like, not just for spreads. Like, I think throughout the arc, there's, like, a lot of really, really good panels. I think artistically, Whole Cake Island might be the best arc in One Piece. I'd have to go back and look and compare it to some other stuff, but I think artistically, Whole Cake Island might be number one. So really, it's not a pre-time skip, post-time skip thing as much. I think it's more Wano, where Wano, there's just so much storyline, so many things that Oda has to fit into a chapter that, like, art is just, it's just not the priority for the majority of the chapter. And it's just not. It is for some panels, but for the majority of the chapter, that's not the priority. Lawrence David says, will it make sense for Zoro to fight Shanks? I think wait, no. Oh, okay, I see. So we're kind of far back. Let me move up. Let me move up a little bit. Monkey D Meme says, Chapter 1030 in Drit's video shows how people in this community gatekeep criticism of One Piece. Stop it more before Joy Boy makes a response video. Yeah, I don't want to be on the receiving end of a Joy Boy response video. I personally think, I don't even want to get into it. I don't want to get into it, because I've talked to Drits about this, yeah, I think that it'll probably blow over pretty soon, so none of it really matters anyway. I think Joy Boy just needs to get out some of his thoughts on it, and once that happens, it'll just be probably kind of put to rest. You know, like, sometimes you just need to get out all of your thoughts on something, and then you kind of get that out of your system. Andrew says, when Luffy finds One Piece, it's going to be like, oh wait, no, I don't want to, I'm not reading this, Andrew, I'm sorry. You just talked about the ending of Evangelion, which I'm not caught up on, sorry. I'm sorry about that, but, like, I can't, I don't want to get spoiled on Evangelion. I'm trying to get through it. Right now I'm catching up on some series, so I'm back into JoJo's Part 8, and I'm loving it. Please don't spoil me on JoJo Lion, but JoJo Leon. Mods, if you see any fucking whispers of JoJo's Part 8, please delete it. Please. I would really appreciate that, because I'm really, 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 really liking it. I love mysteries. Mysteries are like my secret favorite genre. It's hard for a mystery series to ever be like your favorite genre because like the joy kind of is mostly from your first time reading experience. It's hard to relive that joy when you go back to it. But mysteries are like my secret favorite genre of fiction. I've read like so many Agatha Christie books when I was young. Enid Blyton. Even like Sherlock Holmes shit. Like, even though that wasn't that good, it's pretty overrated. But yeah, Agatha Christie, I don't know, like probably the author that I've probably read the most books by, mostly because they're kind of short. Like you can kind of just like fly through them. But I don't know. I love mysteries so much. So like for there to be a JoJo's part that's so steeped in it's all mystery, right? It's all mystery, and the tricky thing is that like I really worry because like Araki is Araki, and he's the one author that I'm like gonna be really wary of when it comes to mystery because like usually for a good mystery, everything you need to have thought of an ending that's brilliant and that you can kind of create a really engaging plot where everything ultimately leads to that logical ending, but you're able to obscure everything in a way that like nothing makes sense and then suddenly everything clicks together and makes sense, right? That's the power of a good mystery. You need to have so many pieces, right? Enough that the reader can keep track of, so many pieces, so many different branching things, enough that the reader can keep track of but not understand them all, and then the brilliance of it is when everything slides into place. It should feel so much like a perfect like aha sort of moment where everything just makes sense and it feels right and it feels like it was always ultimately going to lead to this, and it just, I don't know, like there's nothing as satisfying as like when you're reading something as like reading the conclusion, in my opinion, the conclusion of a really good mystery. Araki is the one guy because he's not planning and making everything connect and like not forgetting any loose threads has never been his strength. But he's really surprising me with this JoJo's part because, I don't know, I feel like he's got a handle on all of the missing threads or on all of the hanging threads so far as I'm into the story. So I'm pretty happy with it. Like, I'm really, really, really liking it. I could see this becoming like one of my favorite series. I don't know, might even pass up Steel Ball Run, but maybe not. Like, I don't know. I'm just going to hope and trust that he's got the full vision of it down. Because this is like, I don't know. I'm probably going to go read JoJo Lion right after I'm done with this stream. I'm really, really liking this series. It's on its way to becoming one of... Yeah. You guys get it. Bebop says, unpopular opinion, but Law is a bad character. I'm never going to say Law is a bad character. I fully acknowledge my own bias when I talk about Law as a character. I think Law is probably a good character. I just have to think about him a little more and remove my bias from it. Udana Uchegbu says, Luffy coming into his own as a true leader. Yeah, I agree. Like, I think that's why Conqueror's Haki is such an integral part to this arc, because a lot of this is Luffy coming into his own as a leader, as a conqueror, as an emperor, potentially. Patrick Malone says, 2 more examples. Sanji's possible loss of emotions for Germa, and Momo's loss of his childhood for the sake of his power. You're right, Patrick. You're right, Patrick. You are right, Patrick. Now I think it's a trend. You got me there. All right, guys. So Patrick Malone says, what he said earlier in another super chat that you guys might have missed is that a theme in Wano so far might be you need a bit of sacrifice for your power. Something along those lines. Right? I think probably didn't word it exactly like he did. But he mentioned Zoro getting the drugs to get back to his normal strength, but he's going to suffer extreme pain in the future. Right? Law and Kid using Awakening, but it burning up their power. Chopper I brought up because Chopper had used his Rumble Balls, but now he's in Grandpa mode. And Patrick brought 2 really good examples. I think these are actually the strongest examples, Patrick, because these feel like real sacrifices. Sanji's loss of emotions for Germa, and Momo's loss of his childhood for the sake of his power. So those are 2 really severe sacrifices in theory. I think those are much bigger than some of the other ones we've had. So I think that's actually now officially a trend. I really like that. Let's see if Oda makes a point of it, right? Let's look for some quotes and such. Maybe there has been something specifically on sacrifice so far. I'd have to see. It's probably something that Kaido said, if he said it at any point. But that's a really good observation. Captain Face, thanks a lot. If the raid fails, I want more focus on Zoro. Same. And Zoro, Shimotsuki, and Momo, Kozuki, with them leading Wano against Kaido. Zoro and Momo 2v1 Kaido, but lose. Luffy arrives with the Grand Fleet to save the day. I don't know if I want to see Zoro and Momo 2v1 in Kaido, but I like the idea that both of them have important routes to explore here. Both of them have important stories to explore here. Both of them coming into their own as a leader in a sense, with Zoro getting his Conqueror's Haki, having talked about how he wants to be rounding up the samurai, and Momonosuke obviously having to come into his own as a leader. And Zoro and Momonosuke actually already have started forming like an interesting off-screen connection with the Tsunachi stuff. Right? Zoro was the one that taught Momo Tsunachi. So I'm really interested to see where that goes, because that's obviously got to come into play in some way by the end of this. AJH17 says, do you read Kingdom? I started Kingdom, and I thought it was really good. I read the first arc. And then there's, like a little bit of a mini time skip. So I read the first arc, and I really, really liked the first arc. I think I stopped reading for a bit. And, once you stop reading, you lose momentum for that series. So, you don't feel like I got to go back and read it. I got to go back and keep reading it or whatever. So maybe I'll get back into it at some point. I didn't stop it for any particular reason. It was more just I hit a good stopping point. I was like, okay, that's enough reading for today. I'll read tomorrow. A few days passed, a week passed, things just got in the way. And then my urge to read Kingdom kind of died down as it kind of became a little vaguer in my mind as something I wanted to do. But that's not to say, I didn't think it was a really, really good, exciting series when I was reading it. And I'm definitely going to try and get back into it at some point. I have really high hopes for it. Wacket. We got a lot to get. Okay. Wackatod CERP says, Greek mythos, Uranus is the Titan of the night sky, Luffy is the dawn, Blackbeard is his parallel. Could the darkness fruit be Uranus? I think someone might have mentioned it if it was going to be Uranus. That's an interesting idea. Darkness fruit is Uranus. Has it felt like the darkness fruit is an ancient weapon, though? I don't know about that. If it's an ancient weapon, would it be in a book of devil fruits? Where did Blackbeard find out the information on it? I don't know about that. Bweezy Bird, what's up? He says, I got emotional when Zoro and Sanji said they see Luffy closer to being Pirate King in chapter 1022. I could see that. That's largely, it's just been such a long time coming, right? So, yeah, I could see that. Perpetual Punster says, hey, Wano hasn't had its payoff yet. Can't tell how good it is or not yet. I agree. You guys are just asking me right now. For me, right now, there's not that much that I've really liked about it, particularly. Also, I would add that, I get the sense that, people do tend to move goalposts a lot with this, right? Which is, I remember for a long time I was saying, okay, I don't feel that much in Wano so far. People are like, well, you got to get to the fights, man. Wait for the fights. Oda's going to nail the fights. That's when the Straw Hats will get all of their big moments. And it's the Straw Hats got their Toby Rocco fights. And, most people didn't think that they were that good, including me. I thought the Robin one was really good. But that's pretty much it. So the Toby Rocco fights happened. Then Kid and Law versus Big Mom is happening. And that's not... I think that was probably the most controversial chapter of the Onigashima battle so far, so that wasn't universally loved. So I'm still I get that we're waiting on the payoffs, but how much longer am I supposed to which payoffs am I waiting for now? Okay, if Sanji's fight sucks, is the payoff just Zoro and Luffy? If the Zoro fight sucks, then is it just Luffy and Kaido? We're already at kind of the section that's the payoff section, And Frankie versus Sasaki was not really it for me. He says, B is a nice character study of sins of the fathers and fathers' expectations of their sons. I can agree with that, but, that's an idea. That's a theme that the arc is about. I don't think it's a particularly insightful character study just yet. I think it's broaching that idea, but I don't think it's gotten to the nitty-gritty of it just yet. C, good history dumps. Good history dumps is cool, but I put that as tertiary in terms of things that are cool. In Robin's backstory, simple example, the lore that we get about the Ancient Kingdom and everything, that's amazing. That's one of the best history dumps we've ever had in the story, right? Lore we get about the Ancient Kingdoms, the significance of the poneglyphs, the Void Century, amazing. One of the probably the best info dump in the story that we've gotten, right? That's the crux of One Piece, the missing piece, right? That is the least memorable part of Robin's backstory, because the actual story of Robin is what's the most compelling, right? The history dump is a really cool, interesting piece we get in the middle of it. But for most people, that's not even the highlight of Robin's backstory. It's the entire story of the character, the tragedy of her character, and the final moments that it leads up to, which is declaring war on the world and I want to live. So to me, that's One Piece. That it has this really interest, like for me, right? That's what I love about One Piece, that it has this amazing lore and history and world, right? And that's like a complementary piece, a nice icing on the top to the amazing storytelling and the dramatic emotional pull that it is able to have on you, and like the moments and like character histories and character dramas that it's able to construct, right? To me, that's the strongest part of the series. And then the lore and all of that stuff is like built into it as this juicy icing on the cake. But I don't care about just the icing on its own, you know? Because Oda can tell me about the sun god Nika and like, you know, his 50 cousins, the moon god, the water queen, the ice princess. He could tell me about all of these lore things or whatever, and like that's still not going to make the Jinbei versus who's fight a good fight. You know, you can dump in all of these lore things, and then at the end of the day, it's still a fairly generic fight that we're reading. I thought it was even a good fight while I was reading it because most of us didn't realize that the fight was over, right? We thought we got all the sun god stuff and like some cool action, and then we thought that the next chapter would be like the climax of the fight and the cool part of the fight. But it turned out that was just it. Cronin says, I thought I was the only one that felt that same way about Law. Yeah, that's just how I felt. I think a lot of people just really like Law's character because, you know, One Piece never really had that type of a character. By that type of character, I mean like that sort of like cool Sasuke-esque, like hidden motive kind of like emo genius type guy, you know? Cameron Mitchell says, do you think Luffy will get another King's Hockey Bloom? 100%. Think he'll need another big one before he beats Kaido. Mehmet says Zoro's name in Slavonic, Hero of the Golden Dawn. That's awesome. I didn't know that. I had no idea. That was a great point. I didn't know he's Slavonic. Anime Devil Hunter says, what do you think is better, Hunter x Hunter or Yu Yu Hakusho? I think Hunter x Hunter is a lot better in my opinion. Yu Yu Hakusho I enjoyed quite a bit. It's just that I didn't like the ending. And I think Hunter x Hunter just has, you know, it takes a lot, like, you see traces of Hunter x Hunter in Yu Yu Hakusho. It feels like Hunter x Hunter is the series that Togashi wanted to be writing, right? And he essentially couldn't do everything that he wanted to creatively with Yu Yu Hakusho. So Yu Yu Hakusho is like kind of like a foreshadowing of Hunter x Hunter. Fun fact, like, I mean, even if you look at the main characters, strong similarities, right? Shoot, I wish I could remember all the names of the characters in Yu Yu Hakusho. But I remember the main four there mirror the main four of Hunter x Hunter. So Gon, Killua, Kurapika, and Leorio. They are very, very similar. You can do one-to-one comparisons almost. I mean, Gon and I don't even remember them. Yusuke. Yusuke? That's his name? Yeah, Gon and Yusuke aren't that similar, but the rest of the trio are practically, I mean, the other three characters are practically a mirror of the three characters that we see in Yu Yu Hakusho that accompany the main character. The part here says, I like your energy tonight. You're logically going in on things without hating, but I might be biased because I agree with most of your opinions tonight, lol. Thanks, Pirate Hero. I mean, I think I realized I made a mistake last stream, especially when people like clipped me and put me on Twitter. I was just like, damn, I thought I was just like, you know, having fun on stream. But like, now it's more like, okay, you know, I don't actually feel everything that I felt right then. Sometimes you just feel a certain way in a moment because people are saying certain things to you, right? So, you know, you have some time, like now I'm approaching it more like how I would try to approach it, which is like actually discussing, okay, why don't I like X, Y, and Z? If I'm breaking down, okay, what are the moments that I like? What do I personally enjoy about One Piece in general, right? Like, I'm trying to approach it more so from like, not just speaking off the cuff, but like speaking more so like, as though I were speaking to you guys like in an actual video format, right? Like not just me shooting the shit, right? So like, actual reasons and points I'm trying to spell out. Zilla the Beast says, how long do you think Kid's assign will last? I mean, until he turns it off or loses energy, right? I personally think Big Mom's going to be able to break out of it regardless because, you know, she's really, really physically strong. I think even a lot of metal structures couldn't hold her down unless, like, all of Onigashima is, like, internally warping around her. So, I don't know. I think it's more like how long until Big Mom breaks out of it. Demigod Daenerys says, would Zoro and Sanji have to lose here for the raid to fail? I don't know. Because I think that Oda could just kind of put Zoro and Sanji's fights in a position where it seems like they've gotten the upper hand or something like that, similar to Kid and Law versus Big Mom right now. So put them in a situation where it seems like they've got the upper hand, and then cut to Luffy. So I don't think Oda needs to essentially, like, if the raid was to fail, I don't think Oda needs to set it up such that, like, oh, it looks like Zoro and Sanji won. Maybe he does that, but I think that you could just go with, like, a situation where, like, okay, it looks like they got a good hit in, or, like, you know, they've got their opponent on the back foot, something like that. Mr. S says, opinion on Blackbeard getting Kuzan to nab Robin. Both had to leave their past lives due to intense heat, Ohara burning and Akainu, and ended up with villains working against them. If you think Kuzan is a spy, I don't think, no, because I think that Kuzan would never do something like that to Robin at this point in the story. I think Kuzan would never, like, even if it's, like, still with the goal of tricking Blackbeard long term, I don't think Kuzan would ever, Aokiji would ever kidnap Robin like that. Rachid Kesserwan says, an opinion on the fourth road poneglyph is Captain John's treasure, the one that Buggy is searching for. Yeah, that's been a popular theory. I mean, maybe not that specifically, but, like, a theory that, like, Captain John's treasure is the One Piece or related to One Piece or, like, integrally tied to the actual main goal of the story. I think that's a really funny idea. I don't know exactly how Oda would set it up. I think it would be hilarious if it is the One Piece itself. But I think that would be a bit much, because then Captain John just knew the location of One Piece this entire time. I don't think that the fourth road poneglyph is Captain John's treasure, though. I think it's just going to be what's at Elbaf. Tilungu96 says, you think Kaido needs to break Luffy's will to get the tension the arc needs? I would love for that to happen. Love for that to happen. Something new, you know? Because right now, if you look at Luffy against Doflamingo or Luffy against Katakuri, it felt like Luffy was pushed harder, or he was pushed into a more, like, tested state. You know what I mean? Like, he's always confident that he's going to win. He always believes in himself that he's going to win. But kind of what he's going through over the course of those battles or against the opponents, and how outmatched or how pushed he feels or seems, or, like, how like, sort of, like, how emotional he gets, or, like, kind of the state he's forced into, where it doesn't feel like he's just like, yup, I'm definitely going to win, more like a, you know, it's hard to define. It's something that you would have to kind of, like, compare pages and pages to and panels to, more like, I have to find it within me to be able to beat this guy right now, is, I guess, what you would say would be Luffy's internal monologue, even though he doesn't have any, right? Like, even though I'm outmatched, even though I feel like, even though I can't really beat this guy, I have to find it within me to be able to do it regardless. That's how I sort of feel during the Luffy versus Doflamingo, and especially Luffy versus Katakuri. But Luffy versus Kaido, it's just never felt like his perspective on the fight has ever really changed, or, like, been complicated in any way, or, like, tested. Even tested. Let's say tested is the word. I don't feel like it's been tested in any way. I feel like he has the same attitude the first time, like, or, like, the last time he got defeated by Kaido, and, like, right now. Like, it doesn't feel like anything's really changed. It just feels like same old Luffy. Which you might say, well, like, that's good, because that's the way Luffy's always like, but it's not exactly. Like, there's a difference between, like, Luffy, how he faces Caesar, or how he faces Hori, versus how Luffy faces Doflamingo and Katakuri. And I would hope that for an arc of this scale, it would be closer to the Luffy we see, like, the state that he's been pushed into against a Doflamingo or Katakuri. That's it. Or their alliance will lose their will/faith in Luffy. I think it'd be cool if we saw, like, some characters lose their faith or will in Luffy, but the Straw Hats didn't. I think that would be amazing. If even Luffy's spirit is broken, but the Straw Hats don't lose faith in him. I think that would be really, really cool. Going into Act 3 or 4, is that too late? No, I think that would be great. And Will is a team in Wano, as you say, so I think that would be perfect for it. Monkey D. Meme says, does anyone still think the Straw Hats will be tortured, or even just Usopp? It was brought up so much in Acts 1 and 2. I still think it's going to be Usopp. I haven't given up that theory. I think it would be great if Usopp was captured, and if Usopp's and if Usopp was tortured. Fun fact, Usopp has been separated from the rest of the group just recently because he has gone off on his own to find Kinemon's upper half. So there's opportunity for that to happen. JRPRESP says, who are the Yonkos and Admirals of the YouTube One Piece community? Man, there's too much now. There's too much. There's not just like 4 big One Piece YouTubers. There's a lot of big One Piece YouTubers. Who are the big ones? Grand Line's the biggest right now. Tekking, Rogers Base is a staple. King of Lightning, Joy Boy obviously, O'Hara obviously, Brago obviously, Sawyer. I was forgetting someone. Sawyer's big. Sawyer is just like I've literally never talked to. And he's not even like. It depends what you call the One Piece community. He's a One Piece YouTuber, right? He doesn't interact with the rest of us. I don't really know what he does. I've seen a chapter review or 2 of his, but I just know that he's respected as an OG. Yeah. I'm putting myself in there. That's pretty much all the big One Piece YouTubers. And then, if you want to get nitpicky and be like, who are the Yonkos and Admirals, then you divvy them up how you see fit. Just don't make me Big Mom. Monkey D Meme says, the laughter I felt when I reread chapter 1014 after 1030 was the most emotion I ever felt in Wano. Pure comedy. The hour of the dawn is close at hand. Kiku's so dramatic for no reason. Oh man, I don't want this just to turn into a shit on One Piece stream or shit on One. It's not a shit on One Piece. I will never have a shit on One Piece stream ever. All right? I might be critical of a given arc such as Wano if, in my opinion, for me personally, it is not hitting the way certain past One Piece arcs have hit. All right, so I don't want this to turn into that. I do think it's kind of wild the way that, like, that monologue that Oda wrote for Kiku. I think I would physically cringe if I went back and read it now, because even at the time, as I said, I think it was a bit much. Even for the time, if it was her death, she just wasn't really a fleshed out character that much. So, like, for her to try and go out with such flowery language and, like, an attempt at sort of poetic, again, I say Shakespearean monologue. Like, even if that was her death, that was a bit much. But now when it was just like a fainting scene, it's literally just a fainting scene. Now it's just like, I really don't know about that. Vapor Babe says, compare the fallen Warden zones in chapter 544 to the fallen Tobiropo in chapter 1022. It really feels like Awakening is going to happen soon. I really, really hope so. Guys, I hope so much. I really, really hope so. You don't understand. And it's not just for the raid failing theory to be right. That's the thing. I really, really, really personally feel like, for me, the tension, stakes, emotions that I see out of the main characters, protagonists, etc., it doesn't feel like it's quite there or even close to there compared to past One Piece arcs that I've really loved. I feel like there's actually a huge gap. So even if, hear me out, even if the raid doesn't fail, something really big to shake things up and, like, change the tone dramatically. I really hope that's the case. You know what? The Tobiropo, if they got up again and the Strides beat them again, right, and the raid didn't fail, I'd still be, like, please believe me, I would be fine if the raid didn't fail as long as the Wano arc, like, just felt like a really dramatic tension-filled storyline with, like, stakes and powerful emotional moments that I'll remember the same way I remember other moments like this, like, in previous arcs in the series. That's it. Even if the Tobiropo all get back up and they all lose again and the raid doesn't fail, as long as we get something out of it, some story out of it that, like, makes this an unforgettable section of the story, I would really like that. Above anything else, I just want it to be one of my favorite One Piece arcs at the end of it, unlike at the moment where I feel like it's just something that kind of reading. Aiden Ryan says, curious if you have read any other fantasy epics. Depends what you mean by, like, epics, because I have not read, like, Sanderson length books. So I haven't read, like, Sanderson length books, but, like, if you want to get, like, Lord of the Rings, Song of Ice and Fire, the Dune series I read a bit of, like, I've read, like, several fantasy series, but, like, if you want to talk epics, like, again, like, 1,000 page after 1,000 page, like, huge, like, what do you call uh, what's the word? I guess just epics. No, I don't think I've read any of like those really, really huge ones, like the legendarily huge ones. But I did used to be like a huge fantasy reader when I was uh, like I think high school and below. And then what really ruined it for me, funnily enough, and turned me into a pure manga reader was manga, right? Like I used to read any and every fantasy book I could find, right? So all the young adult stuff, etc. Like whatever famous author, like Stephen King or whatever, like all the typical ones. I would read like a shit ton of those books or whatever. Fun fact: my favorite series to this day is actually still a young adult series that I read, which was the His Dark Material series, which got a terrible movie adaptation, and as I understand it, a mediocre TV adaptation. But even though it's a young adult series, like that still stands out to me to this day. So that's my favorite book series, actually, still. But yeah, fantasy epics. I stopped reading heavy fantasy after I got into anime and manga, just because like anime and manga gives you a lot of the same similar stuff, but just like faster. Like you don't have to read a huge thing; you just get to watch it, and there's voice acting, and like visuals and animation and like moving pictures, and it's just easier. It's sad to say, but that's just the way it is. It's just the way it is. Cronin says, I don't think this would happen, but I could see Big Mom Awakening being the ability to control a person's soul, and we could see a Law versus Kid Cronin. That seems awesome. That's an amazing idea. I love it. That would be really cool. That's like a power scaler's wet dream. It's like, I wonder how many people could debate Law versus Kid at this point. The Pirate Hero, thanks a lot. I think this has been my favorite stream due to your stated new approach of copying your video style, and the viewer count hasn't suffered for it. Don't get me wrong, though. Whiskey Peak's still mid. Okay. Yeah, I think just for like more serious subjects, I'm going to try and like anything where I'm trying to get into like actually my opinions, right? And I don't want to just like, just spit out like generic shit like, like I didn't like this, I didn't like that or whatever. I think I'm going to try and like elaborate as much as I can, basically, to try and be as like clear and pointed with why I feel certain things. Sahajan Nayak, thanks, I appreciate it. He just sent in an emoji of like a chicken giving a thumbs up. Maybe it's a rooster, who knows? Maybe it's a rooster that identifies as a chicken. Anyone can do anything nowadays. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Why'd I even elaborate on that? If I get canceled over this rooster chicken. Hey guys, like the stream. Guys, you gotta like the stream. You guys like the stream? Oh, is Randy Troy here? I see some Randy Troys in chat, but I don't see Randy Troy himself. Unless he accidentally got unmodded again. Which would be funny, but not intentional. I don't see him. Oh, Jesus, I'm far behind on chat. Biggest non-reverie stream ever, says Anuj Agrawal. 1,358 concurrent viewers. I think I've had more than that. I think I've been in the 1,600, 1,700 range, actually. It depends on the chapter. There's chapters like how hyper controversial the chapter is usually how it goes. Yamil Diaz says, more to do a One Piece streamer tier list. I would just put myself at the top and then everybody else at the bottom, because I don't watch other people's streams that much. What else am I supposed to say? Raghav Krishna says, Morsan, what are your thoughts on Berserk? I am, like, if you're talking about, like, Berserk, what happened, I'm sad. I'm really sad. I think Berserk was a series, like, I think that there's a lot of series that you really, 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 like, in particular, feel bad that are never going to reach their end. And I think Berserk was, like, one of those series where it felt like something truly epic was building. I think that, yeah, like, even out of the series that I hold in really high, like, it's different. So, like, a Hunter x Hunter, right? I've always said this. The way Hunter x Hunter's story works is that most arcs are relatively self-contained. There's not a tremendous amount of follow-through or, like, a continually building narrative from arc to arc, which is why with Hunter x Hunter, it could never have another chapter again. And you could still just watch the 2011 anime and get a fairly complete story with almost no loose ends. You get like a couple loose ends, basically. But it's almost a complete story. That's the thing. Like most Hunter, like a lot of Hunter x Hunter arcs, you can kind of just like, you don't need that much more after them because like the Chimera Ant arc will always just be a really, really amazing arc. Like you don't need to find out what happens next for anything like in that arc to change or lose meaning. Whereas with Berserk, I think that like it was building a much grander story, and I think that it really lost a lot by having that go unfinished. I think that there's so much potential based on how it seemed like Miura could have tied together Guts and Griffith's storylines, which ultimately are the two driving forces of that narrative. What he could have gotten out of that, I don't know. We'll never get to see. I do think that Berserk was, in my opinion, for me at least, not as strong at the section that... Not as strong post-conviction, in my opinion. So, like, I wasn't actually feeling the series that much at the point that we were at. So, for me, the series ended at, like, a point that I wasn't even that into the series. But I know I would have... My interest in the series would have built back up once certain events started getting going. It's just that we were at a section where I didn't particularly care for a lot of what was going on. But that's not to say that I wasn't really, like, extremely looking forward to everything that it seemed like we could get in the future. Oh, someone brought up the Mahabharata in terms of fantasy epics. I have read... Okay, you're a real Indian kid if you know what this is. Amar Chitrakatha. Alright? They're the Indian version of, I guess you could call comics, I guess you could call manga. Right? And they feature all of the stories about gods and goddesses and like not folk heroes. I mean, yeah, just religious heroes, etc., and like warriors and everything like that. And you can basically get all of your Hindu learnings through that. You could just read the Amar Chitrakatha and get a really good idea of like Hindu mythology. And I've read probably hundreds of those. And the Mahabharata is probably the greatest fantasy epic of all time. All right? But I guess that's very controversial because it's also a religious text. So it's not the same thing. But you can read it as a religious text and still accept that the story within it, it's like an 11 out of 10 story. It's amazing. It's like, and, even if you read it as a religious text and you're like, well, this is actually what happened. Cool. Even if that's actually what happened, it's an amazing story. Right? It's wild. So strongly go there's just no way you can't really go sit down and read it, right? Unless you got Amar Chitrakatha would be my recommended way of reading it if you guys have access to those. I can't really give you a reading order. Baba says, Kinemon made Luffy into koi fish in Dressrosa. Yeah, I like that. I like that symbolism, that sort of foreshadowing because, there's so much talk about Kaido's fish being the koi fish because of the story of the koi fish traveling up the waterfall and becoming a dragon at the top. And I've said that I feel like that mirrors Luffy's journey of traveling up the waterfall on a koi fish. So he's going up to Wano, and by the time he comes down from this conflict, he's going to essentially be an emperor, a dragon, whatever. So he's going up as a small fish, and he's going to come out as a huge dragon, test his spirit, etc. Miss Super Chat says the pirate hero. From BR, Morge, where do you see the story going after Wano? Next Island or Reverie? CP0, question mark. What characters will lead the story? Carrot, Yamato, Kid, Law, etc. I think Next Island is Elbaf. I think that in terms of the in-between, we get some world-building section. I like to think that between Act 3 and Act 4, we find out what happened at the Reverie. I would love for that to happen. CP0, I don't know if we're going to get combat with CP0 just yet, or if they're kind of just like the narrators for this section of the story, and we'll get them in action a little bit later. And what characters will lead the story? I think like most everyone except for the Straw Hat Crew themselves, so whoever you think that is, if that's Yamato, Carrot, whatever, I think that those characters will take a bit of a hiatus from the story and come back when it's time for like big battles and shit. Lena says, how would you rank the supernovas? Example, straw hats. Or except straw hats. I am going to answer that after I go to the bathroom and probably fill up my water. So I'll be back in 2 minutes. So I just did my little trick where I leave the stream on a question, so then that way I lose less viewers when I'm off stream. So how would I rank the supernovas? I'll do it as should I do it characters or as Chino Wong says because Morge likes bad chairs. It's this chair. I think I've shown it before. This chair is just like an IKEA dining room chair because I assembled my IKEA dining room table, right? And I live by myself, so I don't exactly need all 4 chairs all the time. So I just took one in here, and then that way I saved money on a normal chair. Now, I do hate this chair. I kind of just hate this chair. So, like, I am probably going to actually just buy a normal chair soon. But, you know, it works. It works as a chair. I hate working on this chair as well. I just hate this chair. But I like the fact that, like, you know, that I get max efficient use out of, you know, a single IKEA dining setup. Anyway, what was I saying? So ranking the thing, right? Yeah, like these streams, says Phantom Greyfire. Please like the stream. If you like the stream, then I don't know, good things will happen. So what was I saying? Oh yeah, the supernovas. All right, we'll rank the supernovas. In terms of, let's say my favorites. Let's do my favorites first. Then we'll do a power scaling ranking because those are fun. Favorites, I think. This is so sad because it's like, it's really sad because there are supernovas that I want to, does this make sense? There are supernovas that I want to be my favorites, but are not my favorites. Meaning that I really, like, for a good portion of the Wano arc, I wanted Kid to be my favorite supernova. And we're kind of far. And not a lot has happened that, like, there's no real moments that make me, like, love Kid that much. He has gotten development as a character, that's true. But it hasn't exactly been, like, it's been subtle, and he has not had a lot of focus or screen time. And there's just not a lot of moments or, like, really even cool, exciting moments that I can think of for him that make me feel like I really love that character any more right now than I did towards the start of the arc. Basil Hawkins, very similar. I wanted to love Basil Hawkins quite a bit. Fun fact, I took the Devil Fruit personality test, and I got Hawkins' fruit. And that's cool, because I like Hawkins a lot. I did. I like the idea of his character a lot. Some of that comes through in that Basil Hawkins video I did recently, where I call him the greatest chess master that never was. That's how I feel about him. I was very excited for Hawkins. I thought he has very interesting persona, very interesting, like, very ambiguous motivations that could, manifest in different ways, or that could turn out to be different things, and one of the most diverse and mysterious ability packages in the entire series. I just felt like there was so much going on with this character. But at the moment, until he gets back up, if/when, I can't say too many good things about Basil Hawkins. So let's say, without this, ignoring the Straw Hats, my favorite supernovas, Capone Beige, then it's too hard. After that, it's too hard. After that, everyone kind of becomes equal. I still, you know what? Fuck it. I still like Kid and Hawkins. I guess I like Law. X Drake is interesting. Yeah, I think it's more like, it's kind of like the character. Okay, the character that I really liked was Capone Beige. Then a lot of them I enjoy, I just want to see more out of, and I like the character concept. So Kid and Hawkins. Then characters that I've gotten used to over time and learned to enjoy, like Law. Then characters we just haven't seen a lot out of yet. So like Urouge, Apu, Bonnie, and I think that kind of rounds it out, right? Oh, Killer. Killer has been a very pleasant surprise. I like Killer more than Kid at the moment. I'd put Beige then Killer as my second favorite supernova at the moment. Never thought I'd say that. But Kid has been a very pleasant surprise. I liked the Kid moment where he was ready to give his life up the Killer moment where he was ready to give his life up to Hawkins in a very similar situation to Kuma. Kind of my life for his sort of situation with the Zoro and Kuma. Obviously, it wasn't nearly as impactful, but it's cool because these are just side characters, right? Like, you have a very similar captain, first mate dynamic just playing out, on the side, and it's been going on, on their own path towards getting towards this point in the story where they're up against the Yonko. I like that a lot. In terms of strength, it's too hard, though. It's literally too hard. I think Kid, because he's supposed to be, right? So Kid, because he's supposed to be, and then some mix of probably Law, then probably Law, Killer, Drake, some mix of those guys, and Apu, and then Hawkins. I don't know, it's too hard. I feel like a lot of the supernovas kind of clump together to be very close in strength past a certain point. I could kind of ballpark them all in the same area. I think a lot of people overrate Urouge nowadays because they're like, well, Urouge beat a commander. He beat a commander. It's like he beat Big Mom's fourth commander, her fourth ranked sweet commander, who when we got to see him, Snack, right? It's not like Oda put a lot of effort into hyping this guy up. He's got a bounty that's way lower than the rest of them, significantly lower bounty than the rest of the sweet commanders, and Oda just put no effort into his introduction or appearance. He was introduced in a throwaway panel. So I get the sense that the guy's just not that significant or important. And you kind of get the sense that he, other commanders, other Yonko, they tend to have three top guys. So I kind of get the sense that Snack was probably never supposed to really be a commander in the first place. So honestly, I would expect Law to beat Snack. I would expect Kid to beat Snack. I would expect most of these supernovas to beat Snack. So I don't think that's really a big deal. In my mind, that's more that's more just kind of hyping Urouge up a bit because Urouge had zero hype going into the between, like, after pre-time skip, lowest bounty supernova and stuff, Oda's kind of got to build him up a little bit. So obviously the other supernova did try to go to Big Mom's territory, and supposedly, according to Brule, a lot of them were stopped by Snack. Now we find out that Kid was not. Kid, in fact, succeeded in whatever his goal was. But I think it's entirely possible that Uruj just fought Snack the most recently out of all of them, in which case, like, that's very different than fighting Snack, like, right out of the time skip versus fighting Snack, like, 2 weeks ago or something. So, obviously, Uruj is probably going to beat Snack while the rest of them fall short. I don't know. Xroot89 says, the raid has felt meandering to me since the rooftop clash ended. Many chapters of moving pieces. How do you feel about the pacing of Onigashima? Pacing, for me, as much as people might be like, Morge has not been speaking well of Onigashima so far, pacing, for me, is very, very hard to gauge, and I try not to gauge it while I am reading week to week, because pacing is usually something that you can really only truly grasp when you binge it, okay? Now, the thing is that I have felt that, like, that there's clearly, like, okay, when I say I guess there's macro pacing and micro pacing. So what I'm saying is that macro pacing, like the flow of the story, by flow of the story I mean like moments of rising tension where it feels like things are getting more difficult, and then like comeback moments and, general ups and downs in the dramatic flow, right? I think if you call that pacing, like do things hit like a lull for many chapters or something like that in the story, things like that, I think I wait till I can binge read to judge. Now, micro pacing, so like within the context of a chapter, right? Like how fast does a chapter flow by, or does it feel like we get to spend enough time with certain moments and stuff? I think that it's been very, very fast. That's why I think a lot of my favorite chapters of Onigashima have been, it's almost like you don't even realize it till you get to a chapter that's not that fast. So like some of my favorite, I really liked the chapter where it was just Yamato and Kaido. Or majority of the chapter after that, I think, was like just Luffy, Yamato, Momo, and Kaido on the rooftop. I like chapters like that because those are chapters, like, suddenly I get reminded that, like, oh, yeah, this is what it feels like to just get to sink into a scene and let a scene play out and enjoy the scene for what it is. Whereas I do feel like a lot of Wano and Onigashima has been just jumping, just a lot of jumping back and forth, so we get bits and pieces of scenes, rather than letting a full scene play out. So, yeah, I don't know. I think macro pacing might be good. I don't know. I'd have to read the whole thing to be able to tell. Micro pacing, I do feel like a lot of chapters have felt like it's just a lot of jumping. But maybe I'll enjoy that more when I read in full. Aiden Ryan says, thanks for answering. I brought up the question because I do think One Piece should be more involved in the discussion in terms of fantasy epics rather than contained in manga. Yeah, I agree. And as far as I know, a lot of the booktubers who have started tackling One Piece do feel the same way, right? So booktubers who have read all of the fantasy epics that are out there pretty much, most of them are saying like, well, One Piece is the nuts. It should be up there. It's just not because of the medium, right? So manga is not held in as high regard as that in, written works of, literature or whatever. But it should be. And I think at some point it will be. I think these things just take a while to sort of enter into public consciousness. So, for example, like the Watchmen graphic novel, which is an amazing... I've, to this day, never read anything else like Watchmen. That, like, reading Watchmen... the movie Watchmen, and whatever the fuck the show is, because I haven't seen the show, the movie Watchmen, it's, like, worlds apart from the novel. The graphic novel is a totally different experience. Like, the movie took, like, the most surface-level elements, like the... Technically, everything is true, right? Like, the plot is the same for the most part, except for the ending. It took, like, a thin film layer off the top of the graphic novel and put that into a movie. The novel is... I don't even want to get into it, but there's... I've never read anything like it. How it told its story and kind of, like... the creativity and mastery of just the art form of what you can do with a comic book. I don't know. What's the point that I'm getting at without getting too much into Watchmen? I guess the point being, I think that the Watchmen graphic novel redefined a lot of how people view graphic novels in general, right? When evaluating serious art or literature, because for the longest time, graphic novel just meant comic meant like, you know, Batman or Superman beating up bad guys, Spider-Man or whatever. So I think that like sometimes it just takes a great leap forward for like people to suddenly start realizing that, oh, this medium has a lot of meaning. This medium like has a lot of weight to it too. In fact, even movies for the longest time, movies as an art form, well, I guess I could save this for the film channel. Should turn off notifications. Movies as an art form were not appreciated for decades as serious art when they first came out. They compared them very unfavorably to plays for a long period of time. So theater was held in a much higher regard than movies. Movies was more for the masses, cheap entertainment, etc. It took a long time. It actually took a while before sort of theories began to develop among film. So people started, actually now I'm going to get a little nerdy on this, but like the differentiating factor essentially became when a lot of French filmmakers, I believe, started putting forward the idea of auteur theory. So the idea that you should view films as like essentially the work of an author, the same way that you would look at a book as the work of an author, or a song as the work of a musician, right? So you should look at movies as the work of an author, right? And the author being the director, and each movie is an expression of a particular style or vision of filmmaking. And that sort of changed the lens of how film was viewed by most people towards essentially being like, okay, this is a form of artistic expression. It's not just people kind of like a group of people throwing some shit together behind the camera. All of it comes back to this director, and the director has the singular vision of how he's going to piece all of these elements together to create, a work of artistic expression. And then as styles began to develop off of that and greater analysis was put into like, okay, what makes like Alfred Hitchcock actually an amazing auteur? Because for a long time, Alfred Hitchcock was actually considered just pop culture, kitsch for the masses, low-level, cheap scares and stuff like that. That sort of narrative started to shift towards like, well, how is this person creating suspense? How is Kurosawa doing this stuff? How is the variances in style producing different effects, and what's the artistic merit and all that? Okay, I'm going too far into things that are not One Piece related. Point being, basically, it takes a while. So usually there's a stage where a new art form sort of starts to gain prominence, right? Then there's a long period of time before that art form starts being given a certain amount of weight, okay? So with manga is still a relatively new art form in the grand scheme of things, especially when it comes to a Western audience. However, there has been a bit of a cultural revolution in the West, for sure, with anime suddenly becoming a lot more popular. In large part thanks to streaming services, honestly, a good amount thanks to fucking COVID. So, COVID, for all it's done bad, it's done some stuff inadvertently good. I shouldn't even say that, but you guys get what I'm saying, right? I think that in general, all it really takes is like, even how video games culture has like perception of video games or like playing video games, how that's changed in the last whatever years. People now call video games art or whatever. So I think that we're still probably a couple decades away from things like One Piece being held in that same light as other stuff, as other great works. But I think it'll happen by the end of the series, or at some point in the lifespan of like, while we are all One Piece fans, basically. Devin says, do other fantasy series have power scaling discussions? They do. I have read forums of Lord of the Rings power scaling discussions. I didn't even know a lot of stuff. Turns out, Sauron, way lower on the food chain than many of us would have expected. Way, way lower. There are all sorts of beings from centuries, thousands of years ago that are way above Sauron, and Sauron's like there's tiers of Maya and like, Are they called Maya? There's some words for it. Ohara would know. I think Ohara's good he's big into Tolkien stuff. But yeah, there's like tiers to this shit, and like Morge is sorry, reading out loud. Sauron's just like the strongest kind of like the type of characters that are left in existence on Middle Earth, but like he had a boss, and that boss was the real big bad of everything, and that boss is just not in the main story. He's not in what do you call it? GTZI says, this man said manga is relatively new, and a good search says it existed since 1798. Okay, so maybe not new, but Morgoth, says Yamil Diaz. No, as far as I know, manga, like, most of the manga series that are considered good or great, right? Those have come out in the last 30 or so years, maybe last 40 years or something like that. Like, there's a difference between something just existing versus, like, the great works sort of coming out, right? So, like, I mean, even just looking at the shonen example, just in the field of shonen, just in that genre, it's kind of just like, if you go back a little bit, it's just like Dragon Ball was like, not that long ago, Dragon Ball was considered the peak standard of this shit. Even TV. So TV, I think, is a great example. TV is a great example because TV's been around for a long time, right? Long time. But only now do people start talking about, in the 21st century, and really since like late 2000s, so first decade of the 2000s, only since then have we started to enter what many call the golden age of television, right? So prestige television. There were good shows before that, right? But television as an art form has started to gain much greater appreciation nowadays. Before, it was considered that movies are just better than TV. The cultural perception has changed a lot. So like being a TV actor versus a movie actor, there was a huge stigma attached to being a TV actor compared to a movie actor. Whereas nowadays, like a John Hamm, Bryan Cranston, some people are saying like those are the best acting performances you'll find out there, right? Obviously, you'll find it's like, comedies especially, people loved Seinfeld, people loved Friends, right? Like, that's not to say that there weren't really popular, great TV shows before the 21st century, but like the general public perception, the broader perception of what is, what's the highest level of like filmed art, right? Like now people put TV in the mix with movies in a way that it wasn't before. So sometimes it takes decades and decades and decades before like a certain art form is viewed in a certain light. That's actually just been like the way it is for most shit in general. Anytime a new medium is introduced or a drastically new branch of an existing art form, it takes a while for it to start being appreciated. You can look at genres of music as another example. Mr. Crescent says, do you think that Kaido has not physically hurt Luffy enough as well? I know Luffy is using Conqueror's Haki and has trained a lot more, but I feel like he isn't struggling as much as past fights. So the reason you feel that is because, and I talk about this in my most recent video on my final argument for why the raid is failing, my most recent video on that, right? One of the big things, the big difference is that it's not about like the singular damage that is done, right? Like, we don't know, man, maybe Luffy broke all his bones or some shit, like when Kaido hit him the last time and then Luffy healed up through meat. I don't know. The main thing is, the difference is that in past defeats, we usually get to see Luffy sort of experience the defeat, right? Seeing him experience the defeat is it gives the reader a different sense. You kind of experience it with the character, right? Experience the character going through the beatdown. So that usually has a much different effect. The Onigashima, Luffy being thrown off, and us just cutting away to a panel of Luffy being thrown off Onigashima, it has nice shock value, because last we saw Luffy was actually doing really well, fighting evenly, or even looking like he was winning against Kaido, and then we cut to a panel and it looks like, oh, wait, Luffy actually lost? When did that happen? What happened, right? And it looks like Luffy took some damage, but we don't actually see, Oda doesn't show us how it happened. We don't get to see or feel Luffy experiencing the defeat, right? So we don't really get to experience the defeat. So it doesn't really hit as hard because all we really get is the shock value panel of like, oh, Luffy was defeated, so we're told Luffy was defeated. But then the next time we kind of see Luffy is basically like eating meat, like, or saying, give me some meat. He's eating meat. He's like right up, ready to go. We don't really even see Luffy down much. Very similar to the one shot in Act 1. I love that one shot, by the way. I'm not knocking the one shot whatsoever. I thought the one shot was great. But I'm just saying that like we didn't see or Luffy didn't experience the defeat really there because it happened immediately, right? It was one moment Luffy's all fired up and ready, and then the next moment he's unconscious. So it's not like he experiences anything. He's waking up essentially when he's waking up in jail, and we don't really see his thoughts or reactions to that, right? So both of these instances essentially make me feel as though Oda is deliberately, to me, I feel as though Oda is deliberately skipping out on really getting to have us experience a true Luffy defeat the way that we've had in the past. So I like to believe that Oda is saving up for one really, really big beatdown that might last like a full chapter or some shit. That's my hope. I think that would be amazing. Whether it happens or not, wait and see. The Pirate Hero says, it's interesting how Oda added a new form of damage this late with Kid and Queen using crushing techniques. I think diversity in skill sets is good. I agree. And I like Queen's power set. I think Queen has a cool power set. Like, Queen's power set in Udon, I was really... Back when we were in Udon, I was just like, what is Queen's abilities? These are ass. Because Queen's... In Udon, the ultimate move that Queen used to take down Big Mom, right, was Brachio Bomber. Which was... This Queen... Yonko Commander, by the way. Right? Yonko Commander. Queen walks up to like a... It's literally Queen walking up to like a high place and then falling down head first onto the opponent. And that's Queen's strongest move. This is a character that like is on the same caliber as like Jozu, who's like blocking attacks from Mihawk and like injuring Aokiji and shit, right? So that was at that point in Udon, I was just like, wait, does Queen just have like the worst? If this is Queen's ultimate move, and this move looks so dumb, is this just the worst power set of all time for like a major villain? But then we get to Onigashima, pleasantly surprised. Queen's ability, like, move arsenal is nuts. It's, I mean, I think King's is pretty cool with, like, flight plus being a giant blade plus, like, fire, and ranged attacks. I think that that's really cool. Queen's abilities, it feels like Oda can pull almost anything out, right? Because it feels like, you can use lasers, additional limbs, detaching parts of your body, poison gas, whatever. I mean, guns, anything that Oda wants to do, even swords, right? Although I guess swords are kind of out of the picture against Sanji at this point. But it feels like Oda really just realized that with Queen, he can throw, it's a mishmash of anything and everything because, you have the advantages, the physical advantages of his own, clearly skilled fighter who can use haki, weapons, etc. And then all of these cybertronic enhancements, so lasers, additional limbs, body modifications or whatever, and then chemical-based weapons. So it's just like, I think Queen makes for a really, really interesting opponent. I think that, I don't know why I went so deep into Queen. You were just asking about, like, crushing abilities. Yeah, crushing abilities, I think one of the things with crushing abilities is that, like, One Piece characters are so fucking durable and tough that it can almost seem like crushing abilities don't seem that potent in the long run. Because, again, like, Kid, I don't know how much metal it would take for me to believe that Big Mom is actually affected by what Kid is doing at the moment. Right? Because, Luffy could push apart buildings as far back as Water 7. Obviously, whatever's happening to Big Mom is much more extreme than that, much heavier. But it's fucking Big Mom, so, like, I feel like she could probably get out no problem given enough time. Sanji, we don't know what would have happened. Well, I guess he would have been fine because of his exoskeleton. But yeah, it might have been a really effective way to put him down if the exoskeleton didn't kick in. And Queen didn't accidentally injure himself. Thomas Kaz says, do you think Usopp could get a new hammer in Elbaf reminiscent of Mjolnir because of the Norse mythology theme? An actual Usopp hammer? like a really, really strong Usopp hammer. I don't know if that fits Usopp's style, because Usopp, the hammer is cool, but like he is at the end of the day a long-ranged weapon fighter, so I don't know if he's actually going to ever be wielding a hammer like that. Like straight up, straight up, actually like going full Thor mode. I think I'm going to do. Yeah, let's do a little bit longer, and then I think I'm going to call it for today. Just because I feel like I've been talking straight for a while. I think I'll do, let's say no more super chats. I'll do 3 more questions. Phantom Greyfire says, Morge, check your email. I sent timestamps and chapters for analysis videos. Oh, a week ago. Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it. I will check those out. 100%. I'll star your email and get back to you tomorrow, because I'm probably just going to crash after this stream. But that is really good to know. Thanks. Anuj Agrawal says, Morge, what is your favorite Nolan movie? Mine is Memento. I think mine's Dark Knight. Nothing crazy there. I like The Dark Knight a lot. I like Dunkirk quite a bit, actually. I really like Dunkirk. Because I didn't expect to like that. It's hard to explain. I don't like war movies usually, because I feel like with war movies, it's just like, I feel like too often it's a director trying to flex. Usually for award season, I feel like it's very rare that a director has it's hard to do a war movie in a way that feels like new or different, because you're mostly hitting the same beats that other people have hit already, just in a different way. Maybe you're like, well, I'm going to make mine more realistic, or like, I'm going to really hone in on like this mental aspect, or like these type of characters or something like that. Sorry. But usually I think war movies, I rarely feel like there's a really unique approach to them. And on top of that, like, they just have a general tendency to, like, when you're trying to do the war scene really right, like lots of guns firing, lots of chaos, blood, gore, it just becomes like a little tiresome after a bit. I think it's generally hard to keep that engaging, and not just like a lot of shit. So that's not to say that Dunkirk like really broke the mold as a crazy innovative war movie, but I did like there's aspects to it that I liked a lot. One, that it wasn't really about trying to win the war. It was essentially an escape. And I actually really, really liked the way that the movie ended, because I just didn't expect the scene at the end, like, not that specific scene when they're on the train or whatever, but like the scene of the boats arriving. I'll just say that. I'll leave it at that and try not to spoil any more, although the movie's been around for a bit. Yeah, I just think that the types of emotional highs that you got off of that were ones that I was not expecting to get at all. And so it surprised me, in certain ways. I like Dunkirk, and I liked Inception a lot for its time. I haven't watched it in a long while, so I can't say what I think now, but I liked Inception back then. Tenet was bad, I agree. Chino Wong says, Morge, lol, DC fanboy. Am I a DC fanboy for saying I like The Dark Knight? Is that all it takes? Can I say that I think that Batman versus Superman was bad? I think like pretty much everything DC's done since then has been bad. Can I say that? I didn't even like The Dark Knight Rises. I like DC more than Marvel, though. I'll be straight. I like DC more than Marvel. Not DC's movies more than Marvel, because I don't think DC has good movies. But I like DC, the universe, the characters, the superheroes more than Marvel. I don't think that makes me a DC fanboy, but like, Marvel just has never really appealed to me that much. Lena says, last super chat. Okay, just want to say, finally caught up to your movie channel. Great videos. Can't wait for more. Oh, thanks a lot. I appreciate that. Oh, movie channel updates for people who are still here. Here's the movie channel updates. So, movie channel I had to take a bit of a break from. Partly because had to revise sort of work schedule to make sure that like I can work on everything that I work on, including that, without ever sacrificing quality or rushing. Because I put out a Squid Game video, mostly because Squid Game was like running on a certain level of hype at one period of point, and I was just like, well, I'd be stupid not to do a Squid Game video, so I watched the entire series. I did like Squid Game quite a bit. but then just fell behind on working on certain parts of it. And then like I uploaded the video like 2 weeks after everybody else uploaded their Squid Game videos. So I was really late on the train. All my viewers also like manga for the most part. So they're all telling me like Kaiji is better than Squid Game. I'm like, thanks for telling me that, guys. That's really, thanks for making that comment. And so overall I was just like, okay, that's a bit of a headache. Also, that was the week, like I was rushing to get Squid Game out and finished and off my plate the same week as I was visiting my hometown to do like, didn't sneeze. Maybe I'm gonna, wait. There we go. I was visiting my hometown because last year one of my best friends passed away. So this year was like a heart walk in his honor. So I wanted to focus on that and like meeting up with, reconnecting with certain people who I haven't seen in a while since I moved. But instead I had to work on Squid Game, which didn't even do well because it was well past the time and I kind of had to just force it out. And so I kind of had to rework my movie channel schedule. So I only want to do quality videos from here on. And I want to really do them right. So I never want to be feeling like I'm rushed again or just trying to jump on a train of what's popular again. All right? I talked to Ohara a bit about this. No one's going to clip this because it's not funny like the other Warner Report thing that I said. But you guys clipped me saying the Warner Report is dead and said that on Twitter. Listen, I got to talk to Ohara a bit and it was extremely, extremely helpful. He gave me a lot of advice for the movie channel in terms of like, because he's learned a lot about like the YouTube algorithm and marketing, right? So he gave me some advice on how to like pick and choose what topics I want to approach that with. And kind of like how to know if, if maybe I'm going too niche with something that I want to talk about or too broad with something I want to talk about. So he basically helped me rethink how I'm going to choose how to do topics in the future to make sure that it's always something that I have a lot to say on and I think is going to appeal to a good amount of people. So like sort of that sweet spot. Because the movie channel is kind of falling into this rut where I'm like, either I'm doing something that's really popular or I'm talking about something I really want to talk about. And that's basically it. So Ohara helped me kind of like figure out like, well, you can talk about this thing. You just have to frame it in this way or something like that. So that was very helpful and it definitely helps me replan how I want to approach those topics. So basically besides that, what was I saying? Yeah, I think that's basically it. Yeah, that's basically it. Just that the movie channel I'm going to get back to soon. So I'm going to start working on the next video for that this week. And I just have the right approach to it now. Not that I didn't before, because I had videos doing really well on that channel. It's just that like now I know kind of like what the sweet spot essentially is, that like I won't feel like I'm having to sell out and do a certain topic, but at the same time I can do the topic I want to do, but at the same time like I won't feel disappointed if it doesn't get as good views or something like that. Andrew Hunter says, where's the Marineford analysis? All right, goal is end of November, so goal is hopefully Thanksgiving week I can put it out, so that'll be a nice holiday season thing. That's the goal. I told you though I won't give you an official date till I know an official date. And the Marineford analysis is not dead. It's literally the video that like is this fucking albatross because like I want to do it right, but it's so fucking long that the process of trimming it down and just like there's aspects that like essentially need to be saved for other videos. So there's essentially like a full Luffy analysis within the Marineford analysis, and I need to like kind of cut 80% of that out or 60% of that out and move it to another video. And I need to like restructure some things, and that's basically where it's at. So it's not like I'm intentionally trying to like put it off. It's more like it's just like such a thing that on top of all the other work I'm doing, I open up that fat ass document. I'm just like, not tonight, and then I close the laptop. So I'm sorry, that's shitty, I know, but I promise I will get the Marineford analysis out, okay? I promise. I'm not like George R. Martin, who keeps claiming he's working on it or will work on it or something like that. I want to. It's in fact mostly done. It's just the last section of it is so like the last process of like me actually going through and being like, okay, what stays in this, what's wrong, and what should be saved for future videos, etc., and then polishing up. That's like the last stages, and it's the worst stages, and I don't want to do it. And I know that sounds whiny, but guess what? That's because I am whining. So there you go. All right, I'm gonna do one. The pirate here says put an uncut version on Patreon. No, because then it's just like a giant mass of essentially like unstructured anything. Virgil Hawkins says Morge comments on Dritz's analysis on Luffy's dream. I have not watched Dritz's video, but I'll tell you right now, if it interests you, Dritz is not as stone cold locked into his opinions as many people think. Here's some of the things that he's told me. Because I was asking him, how do you feel about the feedback to your video? He says like one of the things he mentioned was that like he did see some good arguments against things. He said that there were some arguments that people brought up about Luffy's dream that he hadn't considered that he thought were somewhat convincing. He said that he saw no arguments against Sanji's dream, so nothing about Sanji's dream that made him change his mind about Sanji's dream. So, I mean, that's just like a taste of some of the things that he's mentioned to me. So, you know, take that as you will. It sounds like I don't even know that much about what he said about Luffy's dream or Sanji's dream or the Straw Hat's dreams. From Twitter, I know that something he said about Zoro's dream is something like Zoro not having rivals or something like that. But I don't know the nitty-gritty, so I'm not going to comment on it. But you would be surprised that Dritz still holds most of the opinions he held when he made the video, as far as I understand. But he has, like, actually taken it as, like, a constructive process and, like, learned or become aware of some perspectives he wasn't aware of before in the feedback from it. That's basically it. What did Pirate Hero say? Yeah, I'd watch it, but it's 6 hours too. It's very long. I'm going to watch it at some point. Stefan says, do you agree with Ohara on Zoro knowing about Wano since childhood? I talked to Ohara about this before the video came out because Ohara wanted to bounce stuff off. Some of the stuff Ohara said about Zoro, I think Ohara was right on the money with. I don't know if he kept this section in the breakdown of Zoro video, in the final video, but I think he was right on the money with what he was saying about like why do so many people like Zoro? Why is Zoro such a popular character? I think Ohara made a lot of points there that I really thought were good. When Ohara started going into Zoro being from Wano from childhood, one, I think it's possible that Zoro knows about Wano from childhood. I just felt that, like, and I told him this, that, like, I don't think you can leap to those conclusions, really, in this sort of analysis video, and I think some of the things don't really add up to me. Like, Zoro literally knowing about Wano and Kaido and Orochi and all of the details and stuff like that. But, you know, Zoro being from Wano, that's very plausible. I think I also disagreed with him. I haven't seen the final video product because he told me a draft. So he ran through the points of the draft with me. And I think one of the things he told me was like, well, why do people want to become the best? Why do they want to become the strongest? Usually for some sort of goal. And I fundamentally disagreed with him right there. And I kind of told him that like, I think that's not true. I think that's more of like kind of an anime stereotype. But I think most people tend to want to become the best for their own sake. And, you know, that's something you can want to do just for you. And some people are just born with that sort of drive that, like, I want to become the best in this field. I will feel fulfilled if I want to become the best or the strongest in this field. And that's basically where we left off at. So he was like, okay, I see that. But, like, I think he still wanted to stick to his focus on it, which was like, so, okay, well, let's say that Zoro had a goal then for becoming the strongest. And then he said that goal might have been Wano. So that's maybe it. I don't know. Phantom Greyfire says, Morge, would you watch a 16-minute supercut of you saying the raid will fail on stream if Act 3 ends and the raid doesn't fail? I would watch it. Yes. Are you implying that you have this created? Yeah, I mean, I'm down to watch it. If Act 3 ends and the raid doesn't fail. Oh, man. If Act 3 ends and the raid doesn't fail, that'd be pretty wild. But I'd watch it because, like, you know, the memes are funny. Wonder what life's going to be like if the raid doesn't fail. Like, not like my real life. I'm saying like, interacting with the One Piece community life. I'm going to go through some shit. It's not going to be fun. But, it's okay. Oh, it's ready to publish? Dude, just publish it. Well, I mean, I'd watch it, but I don't know if I'd watch it for 16 minutes straight. I could do it like, I don't know if I'd watch it for 16 minutes straight. How about I have to watch it if the raid doesn't fail? Yeah, if the raid doesn't fail, or if the raid fails, either way I'll watch it. How about that? Because you put in the effort for doing it, right? Jinho Wong says Morge losing faith in himself. Well, no, I still 100%. No, I won't say 100%, right? Like, anything is possible. I wouldn't even be like, 100% Luffy will fight Blackbeard, or 100% Zoro will fight Mihawk. Even if I very, very much believe those things, I'm not going to be like, 100% these things will happen. You never know, right? You never know. But I still much more likely than not believe that the raid will fail. I still much more likely than not believe that. But I'm always going to acknowledge the possibility, because everyone tells me I'm wrong. I'm always going to acknowledge the possibility that, there's, let's say this. In my mind, from chapter to chapter, week to week, there is always a swinging scale of, let's say, between 20 to 40% for me. Between 40 to 20% chance in my mind that the raid does not fail. So my confidence in the raid failing is always ranging somewhere between 60 to 80%. All right? So at its lowest, sometimes I'm like, fuck, this last chapter had me rethinking some things. I'm pretty sure the raid will fail, but I'm only like 60% sure. Whereas other chapters, I'm like, all right, I'm like 80% sure the raid will fail. I don't think I ever quite go up to 90. Maybe, okay, yeah, let's say, if you want to get to the extremes, maybe I'm like 55 to like 90% sure at all times that the raid will fail. So at my absolute worst, I'm 55% sure that the raid will fail. And then at my highest, I'm at like 90% sure that the raid will fail. So let's say it's always within that range. I'm never going to say it's like 95% sure, 98% sure, whatever. Young Dai says Morge will rage then fail. Robert Hobson says, first time catching a stream. What's up, Morge? What's up is I'm about to close the stream. You caught me at the very, very end of it. Phantom Greyfire says, stop giving me more content. I don't want more stuff to put in. I just want you to have a nice, complete product that you can be proud of. So put this stuff in as well. All right, guys. I think I'm definitely... Anuj Agrawal says, before the raid started, Morge was definitely closer to 95%. I will 100% admit, you can go back to the first video on why the raid will fail. That video was so long ago that it's actually not even called why the raid will fail. It's called why the Fire Festival will end in failure. You know why it's called that? It's because it was so long ago that I put that out that we as a community had not even gotten to a point where we're on one consensus term. It's like we were calling it different things. We're like, oh, the Fire Festival, like the big Fire Festival battle, the final battle, the raid on Onigashima. Like we were calling it different things at that point in time. So that's how long ago. If I'd known that the raid is the thing that would catch on, I would have called it the raid will fail. You know what? I'm going to go change it. Maybe not right now because I'm probably just checked out for the day right now, but I'm going to change it to the title to why the raid will fail, like original video or something. Because right now it's called why the Fire Festival will end in failure. So long ago. Who even calls it the Fire Festival now? It's just the raid. Anyway, the raid or the Onigashima battle. Anyway, if you go back to that video, I'm like, there's a 0% chance. I literally say there's a 0% chance that they win this battle or something like that. Or there's 100% chance that they fail this raid or something like that. I think back then I was 100 or 0%. But you have to understand, back then, even then, I'm not saying 100% literally. It's more for the purposes of a video, I'm an upcoming YouTuber, you want to hype up a little more. Maybe back then I was 97, 98. But even back then, in the back of my head, I'm like, yeah, well, obviously there's a chance that it doesn't go that way. You know what I mean? But 8$10 says the raid will fail merch when? Probably soon. I do want to drop some raid fill merch. Probably will work a lot better than the fucking Morge plush merch, but do want to do some raid fill merch. Phantom Greyfire says, okay guys, it'll probably be 20 minutes before Act 3 is up. Yeah, there's no point in history that I've ever been like 100% certain of a One Piece theory, because that's kind of crazy, unless it's something like, you know, like Luffy's gonna beat Doflamingo the chapter before Luffy beats Doflamingo, right? Like there's always a possibility something else happens. But I definitely did say, and you can quote that clip, at one point, like the first thing I said about the raid, back in that video on the why the Fire Festival will end in failure, back in that video, the first thing, like, probably say, it's a 0% chance that they win here, or like, it's a 100% chance that they lose here. I said something like that. Since then, I've tried to tone it down a little bit, so I've never been certain. I think I've tried to make it clear that, like, I'm always in a range of confidence, but that range of confidence is usually pretty high. I would always bet more likely than not that the raid is going to fail. It still very much looks that way to me. Let's see how things play out. All right. Who's Trevor? Don't lie to them, Trevor, LMAO. Who's Trevor? There's no Trevor in my chat. I don't see a Trevor. All right. Yeah, Lafrafa says Luffy's too cocky. He needs that L. I agree. All right. All right, guys. It's been nice. I'm going to call it for the day. I'll talk to you all later. End stream.